Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Laura. It wasn't really a call and response, but the natural response felt good. And it's nerve-wracking to be up here, so it's nice to know that y'all are in it with me. So good morning. I'm Caitlin Quisenberry with the Big Sky Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to Eggs and Eggs. We're excited to have you all today here for our awesome discussion on wildlife along with the 191 corridor and all of the other aspects of how recreation works there and maybe some options for future. I'm excited to say that today we are in person, as you guys here can tell, but we're also online. I was talking to someone earlier today, and I think it is really cool to be able to continue online work, because as we're talking about how to maybe get less cars on the road, offering virtual events for our community members that are down in Bozeman so that they don't have to make the commute but can still learn about the value of our community is a really cool partnership. So thank you for the BizRad team for helping me get tech set up, but also to kind of keep in mind for the people who are here in person, we are online. So kind of watch the talking that is happening here in the Wilson Ballroom so that we're not overwhelming the online audio. Okay. Well, we've got a great stacked discussion, and I'm super excited for all the partners that are here today. Speaking of partners, the Big Sky Chamber cannot do the work that we do without our partners. Oh my. Sorry, Abigail, I told you it was an easy clicker and it's acting out. Jenny, do you mind hitting that side? It doesn't even have an on button. That's how easy I got a clicker. Did you take over control? Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay. So the Big Sky Chamber, these are our top investors. They help us do the work that we do at the Chamber that Anna's going to get a little bit more into later. But we're so grateful for these partners who help us do the great work that we do, supporting our community and our businesses. We'd like to thank our double Black Diamond investors, our Black Diamond investors, and again for additional support with the Big Sky Resort Tax District. Today specifically, we'd like to thank Highline Partners for breakfast, delicious Sweet Buns Catering. I'd also like to thank L&L Site Services and Republic Services for being here with our vendors back at the table. So please visit them over the course of the morning. And then huge thank you to Lizzie and the Big Sky SNO and Yes Composting for helping us make this a more sustainable event. We're really proud to have compostable materials for the breakfast and having the compost that is being picked up by Yes Composting. So thank you for them. And please reach out to Lizzie if you want to find out how to make your event more sustainable. Real quick look at our team, our small and mighty chamber team that's working for you and our businesses here. Here we are, all four of us working hard for you. Anna and Bryn are here today. Thank you, ladies, so much for your support. Bryn is in the back accepting nominations for small business awards if anyone would like to nominate a business today. And then Brad wishes he could be here, but he's in DC advocating at Chamber Days, or excuse me, Destination Capitol Hill. He's advocating for increased H-2 visa workforce. So really doing the work of the chamber, advocating for our workforce and making sure that we have people to help us run this amazing town. All right, a look at the morning. Here's kind of our rundown of the agenda. We're going to start with the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, then kick it to Gallatin River Task Force and the U.S. Forest Service. Then we're going to talk about commuter incentives with Go Gallatin and Big Sky SNO again. At the end, we're going to do a Q&A with all of these partners. So we're going to be in person and online with Q&A. So if you are online, make sure to raise your hand and we'll call you. We're going to start questions in person and then we'll move online. And if there's any questions, we can make sure we can take care of you. When you do ask your question, please make sure to speak into the microphone if you are here in person. And either in person or online, state your first and last name. Okay, with that very exciting morning, we turn to Abigail and Elizabeth with the Center for Large Landscape Conservation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Caitlin, and thanks to all of you guys for having us here today. Got a little bit of an introduction, but my name is Elizabeth Fairbank, and I'm with the Center for Large Landscape Conservation. And my colleague Abigail and I are going to be, sorry, I'll talk into the mic, We're going to be talking about the Highway 191 Wildlife and Transportation Assessment that we're developing in partnership with the Western Transportation Institute at MSU. Before we go into the specifics of that project, I do just want to step back and give a little bit of context on road ecology and wildlife and transportation conflict and how we've been starting to address it in Montana and across the region and across the country. So I'll start with the basics. What is road ecology? As you probably catch from the name, it's studying the impacts of roads on ecological systems and wildlife. So there's a number of indirect and direct impacts of roads. The most obvious one, of course, is road mortality, wildlife vehicle collisions, animals getting hit. But there's also a lot of other impacts, including loss of wildlife habitat and habitat degradation because of noise and light and pollution, introduction of exotic species in road verges, and a big one is the barrier effect of roads on habitat connectivity and the ability of wildlife to move across the landscape. So I've got these 2 and 3 circled, road mortality and the barrier effect, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on these 2 as these are kind of the major issues that we're focusing on. So wildlife vehicle collisions are a big problem all across the US. Each year, we're hitting about 1 to 2 million large animals, or 1 every 26 seconds. And this figure doesn't include unreported crashes or crashes with smaller animals that don't cause property damage or a human safety issue and typically are not reported. So because of these large mammal vehicle collisions, we experience 200 human fatalities and over 26,000 human injuries each year in the US. And Montana consistently ranks number 2 in the nation for wildlife vehicle collisions. There's also a huge biological conservation concern here with 21 federally listed threatened and endangered species that road mortality is a serious threat to their persistence on the planet. When you have these small populations, even having a few individuals get hit on highways can have population level impacts. And wildlife vehicle collisions are expensive. Every year in the US, we're spending about $8 billion dealing with wildlife vehicle collisions, and that's a conservative estimate from back in 2007. So that number is likely much higher now. So this is just a breakdown of some of the costs of wildlife vehicle collisions. Again, this is a conservative estimate, really only taking into account human values. So human injuries and fatalities, property damage, and lost hunting revenue. But you can see the numbers for deer, elk, and moose, some of the most common animals to be hit. We're looking at over $10,000 or close to $10,000 for deer and close to $25,000 for elk and $40,000 to hit a moose. And again, that's just taking into account these human factors. That's not taking into account the value of wildlife being on the landscape or all of these other biological factors that go into it. So I'll move on now to the next piece, which is habitat connectivity. And this is the degree to which landscapes allow the movement of wildlife. This is really important so that animals can reach their daily and seasonal needs, food, shelter, mates, and be able to migrate between seasonal habitats and shift in response to climate change. So here's just one example from our region. This is a map of elk migrations in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And as you can see, these wildlife depend on areas much larger than just a national park or national forest. They're really needing to move across the landscape. And you can see, here in Montana, all of these north-south valleys that come out of the park. So Paradise Valley, Gallatin Valley, and Madison Valley are really critical habitat for elk and lots of other species. And each one of these movements that you can see on the map here causes these animals to have to cross dozens of busy highways and fences, and roads and other linear features are one of the biggest fragmenting forces that we have on our landscape that animals have to traverse to be able to move back and forth in between critical habitat for them. So traffic volume has a big impact on both wildlife vehicle collisions and habitat connectivity. So what you can see here is that at low traffic volumes, you have a pretty low risk for wildlife vehicle collisions. At medium traffic volumes, you have a high risk because there's lots of traffic and there's also lots of animals still trying to cross the road. And then once you get up to really high traffic volumes, the road basically becomes a complete barrier where animals who are trying to cross get hit very frequently, or they stop trying to cross at all because there's so much traffic on the highway. So I worked as part of a team in Wyoming from 2016 to 2018, studying traffic volume and speed limits on mule deer migrations. And what we found is that when you have gaps between cars that are less than 30 seconds, it's typically always an unsafe interaction or a barrier to movement. Between 30 and 60 seconds, it's often unsafe. So we were watching this footage on thermal video cameras basically and saying, okay, how much risk is happening, how close are cars coming? And so that's often safe or impassable. And at greater than 60 seconds, most of the time animals are able to cross safely. So we translated that into vehicles per hour and basically found that at more than 120 vehicles per hour, a road becomes really unsafe or basically impassable for mule deer. A similar study was done in Northwest Montana. This was done in 2015, and they used collar data and strips on the road and found that at over 100 vehicles per hour, the road became a complete barrier to grizzly bears. So really important information, both in terms of safety, wildlife vehicle collisions, and also habitat connectivity. This is one example if you guys saw in Fish, Wildlife, and Parks magazine this month. So this is collar data from a young male grizzly bear trying to cross I-90 out by Drummond. And this bear tried to cross 46 times before he successfully made it. And this is over 2 basically month-long periods that this was happening. So really stressful for an animal, really hard for them to get across these high traffic volume roads. So there's lots of different types of mitigation options that have been studied over the last few decades. And you can kind of see a lot of them don't work. There's basically kind of 3 strategies: change wildlife behavior, change human behavior, or separate them. And pretty much if you want to get above 80% reduction in wildlife vehicle collisions and at the same time provide habitat connectivity, you really need to have these grade separated crossings. So wildlife overpasses, underpasses combined with fencing. And as you can see here, this is data from Banff National Park. And this was really the first big wildlife crossing project in North America. And they had a variety of different sizes and dimensions of crossing structures, and they monitored use there for over a decade and a half. So what we can see is that different species have different preferences. Some really want overpasses and won't go through a culvert or a bridge under the road. And other species will use both or even prefer underpasses. So when we're thinking about what our solution is, it's going to depend on what's the target species. And often you'll see in some of the case studies that I'll show in a second that it's really best to have lots of different options. So over, under, big, small, combined with fencing to accommodate a whole range of different species. So we know that there's proven solutions to wildlife and transportation conflict, but there are barriers to implementation. It's a pretty complex issue. It has a lot of different stakeholders that need to be involved, DOTs, wildlife agencies, federal land management agencies, and often their missions don't overlap. And so there's kind of this dead space in between, well, they do roads and they do wildlife, but no one's kind of looking at where they connect. But beyond that, really the biggest barrier to implementation historically has been funding. But the good news is that has changed recently. Our new infrastructure bill that passed at the end of last year, for the first time ever, includes dedicated funding for wildlife crossings. So that's a competitive grant program of $350 million over the next 5 years that's dedicated to wildlife crossings. And perhaps even more impactful than that, there's language written into many other federal funding programs that makes projects that reduce wildlife vehicle collisions and improves habitat connectivity eligible for billions of dollars in federal funding over the next 5 years. So we have this amazing opportunity right now over the next 5 years to really invest as a country in wildlife crossing infrastructure. So the other cool thing that's happening across the country is really the recognition of how important habitat connectivity is for all different types of species. And we can see a lot of legislative action being taken. A bunch of different states over the past 3 years have passed habitat connectivity bills. And really the main focus of these has been on the intersection of wildlife movement corridors and transportation infrastructure. So most of these bills mandate that the state wildlife and transportation agencies collaborate on projects, identify wildlife movement corridors, where they're intersecting with roads, and develop project proposals to help alleviate some of that conflict. So Montana has not gone that route, but they're working administratively and accomplishing a lot of the same things. So in 2018, Montana held a Wildlife and Transportation Summit. Out of that, Fish, Wildlife and Parks and MDT signed a formal MOU and are now collaborating on a number of projects, including a statewide steering committee. And that statewide steering committee also includes members from Montanans for Safe Wildlife Passage, which is a coalition of NGOs and citizen advocates who are trying to work with the agencies to resolve wildlife and transportation conflict across Montana. So this is really kind of a collaborative partnership between those three groups. I sit on one of these. So there's a statewide steering committee, a data and information working group, and then a planning and implementation team. And I sit on the data and information working group. So what we're doing right now is working with MDT and Fish, Wildlife and Parks to develop an interactive mapping tool that identifies areas of greatest need for wildlife crossings across Montana. So this is really a way for us to think about, where are these transportation conflicts happening, and where are the most important places to invest in to help resolve it. And again, all of these north-south valleys coming out of Yellowstone are showing up as hot on the heat map across the state. So this tool will be coming out hopefully this summer, if all keeps going well. So keep an eye out for that. And then, Montana has been a leader. US 93 north of Missoula on the Flathead Indian Reservation was the biggest wildlife accommodation project in the US for a long time. This was completed in the early 2000s. There's one overpass, almost 40 underpasses, and a bunch of fencing. And these have been really successful, at least in the mitigated sections, at reducing wildlife vehicle collisions and improving habitat connectivity. Thankfully, these concepts are catching on, and we've seen all across the West a big influx of focus on this. So in Teton County, Wyoming, they basically hired the Western Transportation Institute to do a wildlife crossing master plan for the whole county. Since that was completed, they've raised $10 million through a special purpose excise tax at the county level, and they're now implementing the recommendations from that study. And this is kind of what we're hoping is the model of what we're doing here on 191. And lots of places are doing this. So you can see images here from Trappers Point in Wyoming. That's just a little bit south of us on the same highway, 191, State Highway 9 in Colorado. And both of these projects, again, include overpasses and underpasses with fencing to accommodate different species. Again, the overpass near Park City, Utah. I'm sure you guys have probably seen this one in the news, and animals started using that basically right away when it was built. These overpasses over I-80 in Nevada. And then the last example that I'll share today is Snoqualmie Pass in Washington on I-90, and they're installing a bunch of different types of crossing structures, overpasses, underpasses, culverts, really looking at fish passage and all kinds of different animals. A lot of times these are just focused on large animals that are a human safety concern, but really you can be thinking about a whole suite of species, including aquatic organisms when you design these projects. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Abigail to talk a little bit more specifically about our work on 191.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz. Liz has really just given you a short course in the field of road ecology. And so now I'm going to drill down to our wildlife and transportation assessment along US 191 and from Four Corners to West Yellowstone, and also right here along Lone Mountain Trail. So this image shows some of what might happen to help realize our Big Sky, the Big Sky vision and strategy document. You can see there are natural areas and developed areas that can coexist due to careful planning. You can see there are bridges that are tall enough to allow wildlife to move underneath. And they also have the right substrate underneath so that wildlife are comfortable going there. This image doesn't show culverts with streams coming into them, but presumably where they are, they're going to be the right size for high flows. And maybe they even have some specialized structures in them so that small mammals can pass when water is high. And here in the green toward the forefront where you can see a wildlife corridor, it's conserved. Maybe that green is protected land, a national forest, because wildlife can cross under the road. So I'd really like to thank all of those, and I know many of you are here, who put the Big Sky vision and strategy document together, because it really paved the way for us to be here today. So we appreciate the work of the Gallatin and the Madison County Commissions and the Resort Area District in doing so. I want to make sure to thank our financial sponsors. Those are the Resort Area District, the Moonlight and the Yellowstone Club Community Foundations, and the Volcano Foundation. And of course, big thanks to the Big Sky Chamber for inviting us to be here today and for helping us in a number of other ways as well. I'd also like to recognize two individuals who are in this room. Those are David Kack of the Big Sky Transportation District, of course, the Western Transportation Institute as well, and resident Meg O'Leary. Meg O'Leary is a member of the board of directors of the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, and both she and David have helped point us in the right direction several times. So now, why are we here? It's really pretty simple. We're here because it's getting busy. The Montana Department of Transportation studied US 191 between Four Corners and Beaver Creek, and they found a nearly 40% increase in traffic between 2010 and 2018. So certainly nobody wants to hit an animal. It's really a terrible thing when it happens, but it's really an even bigger problem for wildlife. Wildlife need room to roam. Their basic abilities to find mates, to find shelter, to find food, it all depends upon movement. The Department of Transportation's study, which they put out in 2020, found that 24% of crashes in that stretch of road are with wildlife. That's a pretty big number. The study also called for additional research to consider possible fixes. So that's why we're here. The landscape level view that we are taking will look at site-specific options along US 191 and Lone Mountain Trail. Now, at its core, the assessment that we're working on is a synthesis of information from a variety of sources that traditionally haven't come together. And in the end, it takes the shape of a fairly substantial report. The report can serve as an essential planning document so that decision-making can happen about how roads can be safer for both wildlife and travelers. Our work is the backbone to make travel better, both for our species and for the others here who share their environment with us. Here's another reason why we're doing this. This picture is Liz speaking to Dr. Kate Isley's 11th grade class at Lone Peak High School. And when you have a chance to visit with new drivers growing up in Big Sky about wildlife and transportation, it's really clear that it's something they've all taken to heart. One of the students said that when he sees wildlife while driving, he says, I look at their eyes because I just know they're going to do something dumb. So our assessment can serve as a foundational document for change for each of these students in the future and for the subsequent classes that are going to follow them. So a few years ago, our organization, the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, carried out a connectivity analysis for all of the Custer Gallatin National Forest. That's so the Forest Service could make decisions about its own roads and other types of management. And the analysis showed that the area surrounding 191 and Lone Mountain Trail within BizRad, and also along other areas further south to Yellowstone, are really key as crossing areas for a number of species groups. So in addition to Madison and Gallatin counties, the communities of Big Sky, West Yellowstone, and Gallatin Gateway. We have 2 state agencies, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and the Montana Department of Transportation, the U.S. Forest Service, Yellowstone National Park, and the Federal Highway Administration as stakeholders in this work. We're bringing together wildlife biologists, road ecologists, spatial ecologists, who are people who do data analysis via GIS, transportation engineers, and a specialist in ecohydraulics together. And we're very lucky to have MSU and the Western Transportation Institute involved in this work as part of our team. They house 3 of the world's leading experts in the field of road ecology. So by bringing together different disciplines and representatives from multiple agencies, and also including input from all of the communities along the way, we expect to develop a planning document that's well vetted and something that can be put into action. So bringing communities and groups together to achieve conservation at the scale that nature operates is pretty inherent to being effective in conservation in our area. We've focused quite a bit on roads and showed pictures of terrestrial wildlife thus far, but I want to make sure you understand that an important aspect of our study is looking not just at the habitat for land-based animals, but also the aquatic habitat that the road affects. So there are 66 culverts along Lone Mountain Trail and 191 in our project area. And I know that because my colleague Braden Hance, who was, I think, at the 4th table back, Braden, maybe you can raise your hand, he mapped them via GIS. And then moreover, he's the person here in the yellow vest who went out with our field crew to assess how much of a barrier each of those culverts is to fish, as well as the opportunities that those culverts could be for small mammals to cross. So if any of you recognize Braden today, it might be because he also spent a fair amount of his summer both at the post office and at the farmer's market and at Roxy's to gather information from members of the community about wildlife sightings and movement. So this next slide on methodology is really the heart of our analysis. We're bringing together data from different agencies that wouldn't otherwise come together. So that's crash data, carcass data, wildlife movement data, and then the information from our connectivity model. We'll then take the local knowledge we gain from anyone we can in the area and put it together in a data layer. And I really hope that those of you who are here today will participate later in helping us gather some of that data, and I'll tell you how in just a minute. Then our spatial analysis, our spatial ecologist will combine those layers from different agencies and the ones that we've developed, and we'll go out into the field and test it with an interdisciplinary team. So we'll look at the top sites that the analysis suggests and rank the options. The considerations are safety risk, wildlife connectivity value, engineering feasibility, and the landscape context. After that, we'll carry out a cost-benefit analysis. So we want to make sure to maximize the efficiency of any of the recommendations that we make so the funds are spent wisely. We focused on images thus far of overpasses, underpasses, and fencing. We will certainly also consider less expensive options like variable messaging signs and animal detection systems that indeed may not be as effective, but are less costly, so may have a place as well. We're committed to bringing you the best information that we can so that you, as members of this community and also local representatives, can determine how to move forward about developing any specific projects. As Liz said, there's $350 million dedicated to wildlife crossings and really additional billions through other titles in the new federal transportation bill. And we believe this assessment will help Montana and this community be ready to take advantage of these funds. The rules are still being written about how those funds will be distributed. So we're right on time. So what can you do now? There are really 3 things. First, you can help us gather data using a cell phone app. Second, you can share what you know about wildlife use of the landscape through an interactive map. And third, you can join our pretty infrequent mailing list. The app, the map, and the mailing list are all available from our website, and we also have some flyers in the back of the room that you can pick up to learn what it is. So the Roads app, it's a pretty simple tool. It's a cell phone app. It takes, I think we have a 4-minute video on how to learn to use it, so not so long. It can be used from anywhere as it relies upon GPS. It's a way that you can help us to record wildlife sightings and roadkill. And it's pretty important because we know that the official data are a substantial undercount. Carcasses simply disappear pretty quickly, and there aren't enough eyes without all of us participating. So this data dashboard is one of the things you can see on our website. This is actually an old slide because by now we have about 100 or 1,500, I believe, sightings of different animals recorded. It's the data that's provided by those citizen scientists, people who've been using the Roads app since last March. And as you can see the species type, where they're located, if they're crossing the road, if they're roadkill, if they're near the road, and the specific locations. When you expand that map that shows all the dots up and down. Also on our website, this is the homepage of the interactive map. It guides you through a short dialogue to help catalog your understanding of wildlife movement. So that's really where we want to get to know what you know from being in the environment for some time, just what you've seen in terms of crossings, where there are historic migration patterns. For both the app and the interactive map, our study gets better with every entry. So again, I'd really like each of you to participate. So to close, I just want to underscore that we're really glad to be here. It's a really gratifying project to be part of. We think we'll have our information out by late summer, and certainly we'll have a public presentation later on to showcase it. And I want to make sure also that it's clear our work is really, it's the first step of a multi-year process. It's a basic blueprint that this community and many of you who are in this room are really going to be key to move to implementation. So we're very glad to bring the power of robust information to you and hope we can serve as a partner and a resource as the communities along the way figure out how to move forward with next steps. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And just as a reminder, we will have questions later. So if that sparked something, or if it didn't just spark something yet, keep it in mind. Now I'd like to welcome up the Gallatin River Task Force and U.S. Forest Service to move forward in the presentation. Thank you, ladies. Good
morning. Good to see everyone. I'm Emily O'Connor with the Gallatin River Task Force, and I'll be joined later in the presentation by Wendy Urey, Recreation Program Manager for the Custer-Gallatin National Forest. The focus of our presentation today is talking about the importance of the Gallatin River as a recreation hub and the management and restoration tools that are being utilized to balance growing demand and protect the health of the river. While every river is essential, all of us in this room have a personal connection to the Gallatin and are keenly aware of the importance the river plays in the fabric of our community. And I think a theme you'll hear a lot today is that our community is growing. Gallatin County has been and continues to be one of Montana's fastest growing counties. And with that growth, combined with the highway corridor being a gateway to Yellowstone National Park, means that more and more people are recreating on the river. This photo on the bottom left-hand corner is actually the task force team doing our annual rafting trip on the river. So we also enjoy river recreation. The highway's proximity to the Gallatin River, combined with being adjacent to national forest land, make it highly accessible and contribute to the volume of use on the river. River access is via a combination of Montana Department of Transportation highway pullouts, U.S. Forest Service trailheads and campgrounds, visitor-created highway pullouts, and visitor-created access trails. Almost a decade ago, a local Big Sky rafting guide approached the task force about the environmental impacts they were seeing on the river and had a lot of concerns, particularly related to the impacts around visitor-created access. So in the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see an example of what that visitor created access looks like. So a vehicle will often pull off the highway to get to the river, and then more and more vehicles and people access that site, creating more damage. And what that environmental damage looks like is essentially soil compaction, erosion, and degraded riparian areas. And a riparian area is the ribbon of land, the ribbon of plant life along the river's edge that serves a very important ecological function. Riparian areas stabilize stream banks, they filter pollutants, and provide fish and wildlife habitat. A 2005 assessment of the Gallatin River found that 33 out of 44 miles of the Upper Gallatin River were characterized as having poor to fair riparian health. So that was a big concern. Another big concern is social impacts. So with growing recreation use, you're going to see more crowding on the river, different conflicts between the different user groups, safety concerns, all of which degrade the overall quality of the recreation experience. So with that, the task force spearheaded the Gallatin Canyon River Access Site Assessment in 2015. The assessment examined 39 miles of the Upper Gallatin River corridor between Yellowstone National Park and Spanish Creek. Part of that assessment mapped 111 developed and undeveloped access sites and assigned a usage type, an access type, and various restoration treatments that could be taken. So with that assessment, we contacted the Forest Service and provided the results of the assessment. And that ultimately kickstarted a partnership with the Forest Service that allowed us to look at different project work that we could implement that would provide sustainable river access and protect and restore the ecological integrity of the river. So with that, I'd like to invite up Wendy Uri from the Forest Service. She'll talk more about our project and partnership work.
Hello. And I'd just like to say that in 2015, when the task force approached us, we were just so excited to have a partner that was interested in partnering with us on the river. Also, a partner from Big Sky. You're a large part of our Bozeman Ranger District community, and kind of felt like we didn't have a great connection to this community. And so this is one project that we really feel like helped us have a connection here. So thank you for being part of this whole project. So to formalize our agreement, we entered into a cost share agreement to look at how we do our projects and sort of document who's doing what and that sort of thing. The agreement includes specific project work we do, volunteer coordination, and then also we started having a river ranger on the river. And my current river ranger says, I really can't call him that because I won't give him a boat. But he spends a lot of time along the corridor, both working on projects through this agreement and also just talking to people and interacting with the public along the river. The first project we took on, it was kind of our demonstration project, and this was a kind of a happenstance of the highway project that was going on, putting in turning lanes along the highway, and one of which was at the Moose Creek area. And for those of you that know the area well, that's a campground that over the years, the access road into the campground also became a river access. And, you know, the Forest Service had been managing campgrounds and trailheads. We hadn't really been managing the river access. And as part of that turning lane project, we created a separate river access parking at that area, but we still hadn't connected that parking to the river and formalized how you use that area. So this project allowed us to put in a boat ramp that was designed to accommodate the large amount of commercial raft use in there, a place to launch kayaks, an accessible trail all along the campground, with some fencing to show people where to access the river. So we reduced the number of kind of human created trails down to the river. And then this picture here shows the stream bank bioengineering, which is a really cool project. That stream bank was super raw and eroded and overhanging. The roots, those trees were just like hanging out over the river. And the goal was to try to rebuild that bank and make it so it wasn't contributing as much sediment to the river. And one of our Forest Service engineers was skeptical when we designed this, like, can we do this without putting boulders and whatnot in there? And you know, we've had some good high flows and it's a really cool bank. I recommend stopping and checking that out. As the willows grow, it'll become more lush and protect the river from that sediment running off. And then we also planted a lot of little trees and shrubs and that sort of thing. You can kind of see the flags there from when we planted. We marked what went where with the flags. And then there's also 3 interpretive signs talking about the importance of riparian areas and protecting rivers. So this second project that we've done, and this was just finished last summer really, is what we're calling the Upper Deer Creek Project. And part of the impetus here was to try to get some of the river traffic out of that Deer Creek trailhead where there's a single lane bridge and it's dangerous with vehicles waiting to pull in while someone's pulling out. And so actually one of the river outfitters recommended this as an idea of a place to put some of that river traffic. So we put in an accessible fishing platform at this location, a boat ramp, again, the kayak launch, 2 different parking areas, and more educational interpretive signs, a lot more shrubs and trees planted. And then between the 2 parking areas, if you guys know this area, it's the big meadow. We kind of called it the power line meadow, where there was a muddy 2-track that connected 2 parking areas at either end. So now we've formalized the parking at either end and there's a nice accessible gravel path between the 2 parking spots. And so a lot of effort went into this over the last 2 years. We'll be continuing, I think, this summer to water our plants and try to nurture them to make sure that everything survives and thrives. But one of the great things about these projects and the partnership in general is the community support we've received and the collaboration we've built, both with the task force, but also with Trout Unlimited and the Gallatin Invasive Species Alliance. Jen has been awesome about helping us monitor our weeds at these sites, and they have a big stake in the Gallatin Canyon from an invasive species department. But the community Big Skies really contribute greatly to this. I mean, there's basically no federal funds that have gone into these projects. It's all been fundraised, and we really appreciate the foundations and the businesses and the individual donors that helped us make these projects happen. So our next steps, one of the things we've been working on, and Emily has put a lot of effort in, is we're like, okay, we got to take that river assessment document and come up with a plan. Like, what are we doing? What are our priorities and how do we approach some of these projects? So we're finalizing an Upper Gallatin River restoration strategy that helps look at the big picture. How, what's out there? What are the projects? How are we going to approach taking them on? In the near future, we're looking to initiate a project in the Porcupine Beaver Creek area, just south of town here, to improve how river access happens there, how Beaver Creek stream functions, also the trailhead at Porcupine and some of those impacts. And then we're also starting to look at some of these smaller informal river access sites. The Gallatin National Forest Travel Plan 15 years ago set a goal of looking at all of the, what we call the go downs, the sort of user created routes, and figuring out how to manage those better. So that's another project we're looking at here in the near future, is designating parking, corralling it so that those parking spots don't go all along the river and contribute sediment. And opportunities for engagement. I got a photo here from last summer's working up at Upper Deer Creek, where we were trying to rehab some of those user routes into the back of that meadow. The task force has been coordinating volunteer events where people have helped build fence, plant plantings, cut willows. So we have lots of opportunities in that department. We will be looking for some feedback on various design plans or the strategy. You know, what is it you want to see? What is it you value about the river? It's important to us to hear about that. And then just in general, practicing river stewardship and educating others about how important the river is and how to use it responsibly. So I just want to say thanks for inviting us, and it's been an awesome project to be part of, and we're hoping to keep doing more. But thank you.
Thank you, ladies, so much for that. There's so much good work being done here. It's really nice to have our eyes open to it sometimes. And with that, I'd like to welcome up Big Sky SNO and Go Gallatin to kind of finish up this conversation of what all we're doing here.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. If you don't know me, my name is Lizzie Payton. I am the Community Engagement Director with Big Sky SNO, the Sustainability Network Organization. I'm going to be co-presenting with Matt Madsen. We've been collaborating on a great incentive program in March. That was the Big Sky One Less Car program. I guess I have to do this too. I'm going to forget to do this. I'm sorry. And we'll be talking about the impacts we're having. It correlates a lot with what both the former speakers talked about in terms of amount of traffic, and we're making our best efforts to put a little chip in what is actually happening in terms of amount of cars going up and down the canyon. So basically a little brief introduction into Big Sky SNO. Matt's going to introduce to Go Gallatin, and then from there we'll talk about the collaboration. This is kind of like a picture collage of what we're doing as SNO. We were established in 2020 as a 501c3, focusing on community-wide programs and projects that reduce our environmental impact in an effort to protect and preserve Big Sky and our greatest asset, our outdoor living environment. We have made some tangible, highly accessible kind of things available for the community, including, you may have seen the recycling bins and composting bins that are at Town Center and the softball fields, as well as our permanent and event water filling stations, where we work with Outlaw really closely in creating spaces. So we kind of go for a zero waste effort event. What happens is essentially zero waste isn't technically zero waste. We try to divert as much as we can from the landfill in an effort to get as close to zero waste over time. So that includes like what we're doing here today with Caitlin was so kind enough to help me coordinate this, the composting, the recycling, and then the landfill. A lot of what we do is educational outreach and engagement with the community. So that's why you'll see the signs that are really clear to hopefully help you make it easier for you to be part of our collection action as a community in reducing our carbon footprint and our environmental impact. We're also working with Valley of the Flowers on bags for change at the Hungry Moose and Roxy's. So bring your bag, and a little donation will come to SNO if you bring your own bag. And then we began engaging community stakeholders last year in the fall to contribute to drafting kind of a strategic overall plan for our community that's known as a climate action plan. You may have seen this in other communities. This is basically a toolkit for the community to go forward to reach as much emissions reduction as possible over the course of time. Our goals are based in 2035 and 2050, so really long-term goals for our community that require collective action and engagement. So that means all of you get to participate in it. These are our partners, and we're so grateful for all of our funding partners, including BizRad, the community foundations, and our operational partners, including Outlaw, 406 Recycling, Republic. Alexis is back there today. She helps me a lot with community outreach and engagement. She is awesome. And so many others who are helping us do these things to make our community aware of the efforts we're putting towards preserving the environment. We also have a steward program that helps everybody, individuals and businesses, contribute at a place that they're comfortable. And this is kind of what people contribute to in the grand scheme of things. This is the 30,000 foot view. On the right, you'll see a graph, a nice little pie chart, if you will. It brings me back to like elementary school, I think. And this is a product of our greenhouse gas emissions inventory that we took for the years of 2018 and 19. We can go into greater detail later if you have questions, but to keep a move on, we have 5 focus areas: increasing the green energy supply, improving building efficiencies, consumption and waste reduction, environmental resilience, and reducing transportation emissions. These 5 focus areas we're working with 40 community stakeholders at this point in time on a working document to basically come up with problem-solving solutions so we can hopefully create these trajectories and have a better impact on the environment going forward. The reason we ended up working with Go Gallatin is the last number there, 5, reducing transportation emissions. I was introduced to Matt last summer, and we started focusing on collaborating in ways that we can start making tangible effects in our commuter emissions and how we can really hopefully both reduce traffic, because who wants to sit in 2 hours over the holidays between the two of Bozeman and Big Sky, and also reducing the emissions from that traffic. Intangibly, a commuter project also does this really cool thing that foments community, and you get to sit in a car with somebody you maybe have never met before. And it's really great because you get to have a dialogue with them, and it creates this qualitative outcome that is hard to put down in a grant and what you're going to do, but it is something that really fosters a sense of community, that we're all in this together, and you get to kind of hang out and somebody doesn't have to drive. So on that, I'm going to introduce Matt. He has been great to work with, and he's going to talk about Go Gallatin and then the commuter program that we have been working on. Little last thing, biggest thing from the greenhouse gas emissions report that all of our board commented on was the vehicle miles traveled. You can look there, 84 million miles in 2018 and 88 million miles in 2019. 2020, that definitely jumped up pretty high because nobody was carpooling or taking the bus. And we will get data in the future, but this is the trajectory. And as people have spoken today before about it, it's only going to increase. So we are trying our best to chip away at a little corner. So thank you so much.
Morning, everybody. Oh, I have to talk about this thing. Can I take it off? Sure. Awesome. Morning, everybody. So my name is Matt Madsen. I work with the Western Transportation Institute. I'm a program manager for Go Gallatin. So I'm seeing a lot of like 1,000-mile stairs out there. So what we're going to do really quick is when I say go, I'm going to have you stand up, turn to the person next to you, introduce yourself, tell them how you got here today, and then tell them what your favorite disco dance move is. All right, so go ahead and stand up, introduce yourself to your neighbor, how you got here and your favorite disco move. All right, and once you've had a chance to do that, go ahead and have your seat so we can get going. No, I know, this is perfect. So Awesome. My background's in public health. And we have a saying sometimes that is, if it ain't fun, it don't get done. And so we need to remember that when we're kind of doing some of this work. So first things first, so who drove here solo today? A lot of hands. I'm even guilty of that. Who carpooled or transit? Awesome, nice work out there. And did anybody bike or walk here today, actually? No, still a little too cold. It is Montana, it might not actually get warmer, but so what are some reasons that you made the decision to take the mode of transportation that you took this morning? Can I raise a hands? People want to maybe give a shout out why they were? Yeah, in the back there. Great. Awesome. So convenience of being able to get to places quickly post where you're at. You did carpool with the kids this morning, so nice work on that. Awesome. Other folks, why did you choose the form of transportation that you took? Yeah. Get here bright and early. Any other people here have to get here bright? It was actually bright and early, especially if we had to drive a long ways today. Yeah. So the reason I'm asking this is that when we talk about transportation, there is the key infrastructure piece, but another very important component to the whole thing is human behavior. And when we think about needing to make our employees or other people involved make different decisions, how are we doing that and how are we supporting that? And that's one of the things that we do at Go Gallatin. And so, as I said, we're a part of the Western Transportation Institute, which is a part of MSU. And so David Cack here, we'll get a mention again. He's our boss there and in charge of our mobility department that we work through. All right, so most of my job is doing transportation demand management, sometimes referred to as TDM. Have people heard this before? Cool, so we'll introduce this to you. So this is really working with businesses and organizations and communities to make sure that there are all sorts of transportation options available to meet the needs of employees and the community as a whole. So as you can see, do I get got a laser pointer? Awesome. It's looking at everything. So, you know, if you have a good TDM network, you have the ability for people to get to and from places via a lot of forms of transportation. So bus, yeah, Big Sky has Skyline. So that is a resource that is available within this community. Bike and walk. Montana is an interesting place because of the length of our winters and the maintenance that is required to keep bike paths and things like that clear to actually make them an accessible form of transportation throughout the entire year. Looking at things like a flexible schedule. If you have employees coming from Bozeman, do they need to be here every day? A lot of the resort industry, that's the reality, is that it is an in-person job. And so flex schedules might not work, but it might work for some of your employees some of the time. Van pools and shuttles, some of the resorts and businesses up here do this. We look at ways to possibly increase that. Carpooling, that's one of the big pushes that we had with the Big Sky One Less Car program, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then finally, also the ability to telework. And so if a job has that capability, or could a job get that capability created to allow to help with the transportation issues? So that's a real brief intro to TDM. If you want to learn more, you can reach out to me at some point and we can do an entire crash course for you. So who are we and what do we do? So Go Gallatin is actually an online platform, gogallatin.org. If you haven't been on there, get on there and check it out. We're hosted by Ride Amigos, which is actually a larger company that does transportation demand management for communities across the country. And so this is what our platform looks like. It is a transportation planner. There's a bunch more than just that, but you can put in your starting and ending location and you can find out all sorts of transportation options of how to get there. You can set up carpools. If we work with your business to put van pools together, people can sign up for van pools there. You can find bike and walk routes. You can find transit schedules, all of that type of stuff. One of the other big things that we do is challenge and incentive programs, because whether you like it or not, incentivizing behavior actually works. And so right now we're in the process of running a 3-week challenge incentive program with Big Sky Resort. to get people, resort users, skiers to carpool instead of driving solo. We partner with the downtown Bozeman, I always get this, the Downtown Business Partnership in Bozeman to do an event over the holidays around biking downtown to do your Christmas shopping and stuff like that. And then our big one is the Go Gallatin Challenge, which actually happens May 2nd to the 20th. And it's a teams challenge amongst everybody in Gallatin Valley to see who can have more sustainable transportation trips during that month. We partner with a lot of local businesses, give away a bunch of prizes, do all that type of fun stuff. So that's a big part of what we do. So currently, we've been Go Gallatin now for about a year and a half. Before this, we were the Bozeman Commuter Project. And back in the day, it worked because we were really just focusing on Bozeman. But what we've learned is that the transportation issue is bigger than just Bozeman. It's the entire Gallatin Valley and beyond. So we actually rebranded to be Go Gallatin, to be more encompassing of the needs of everybody, not just Bozeman specific. So currently we're sitting just below 1,400 users. This is all the data. The platform is really awesome because as we log trips, we can track and report out on all the data. So vehicle miles traveled reduced, CO2 emissions, calories, money saved, all of that type of stuff. So when we work with our partners, we're able to provide them with the data for their projects and their programs so that they can actually report back to their boards, their constituents, or just keep track of what they're doing. It's been said a bunch of times this morning, but like the partnerships are key. So transportation is a community issue, which means it needs a community solution. And so in order for that to work, we need as many partners as we can get. So this is not an exhaustive list of all of our partners, but these are specific organizations that we partnered with either through helping fund the platform, helping fund incentive programs, through donations, or just helping us build the platform out and different things. Another, just I'm going to highlight one. Montfort Moves is actually the Montfort School District in Four Corners. We're in the process of developing a pilot incentive program for youth who utilize active transportation or the bus as forms of transportation. They get money that's redeemable at local businesses. So not only do they learn active transportation, climate reduction, all that kind of stuff, but they also learn some fiscal responsibility and financial stuff too. So we have all sorts of fun partnerships and programs that we do. Now, really why we're here, had the opportunity to work with Lizzie, Big Sky SNO, the Yellowstone Club Community Foundation on developing the Big Sky One Less Car program. This is a commuter incentive program. And the way that it worked is commuters sign up on the Go Gallatin platform, and then they log their trips, encouraging them to utilize carpool or transit. If they log a trip, round trip for the day, they get 1 point towards their incentive. If they do that 4 times during the month, they were actually eligible to receive one of the incentives. Now, the incentives for this program were $15 gift cards to a couple local businesses. So a huge shout out to our partner businesses, the Big Sky Conoco, the Hungry Moose Market and Deli, and the Coffee Pot. They actually gave us $15 gift cards for $10. So the business donated $5 per gift card given out towards the incentive program. And we used a grant from the Yellowstone Club Community Foundation to offset the other $10. Super cool opportunity to actually look at building out a year-round incentive program. So this one was run for just the month of March as a pilot. So we could see how it worked, build some partnerships in the community, start to get the word out on Go Gallatin, and try to engage to ultimately build it out as I said, a year-round program. So did it work? Yeah, we had 73 people sign up for the incentive program. We actually ended up with 45 people completing. We had 2 people actually submit their stuff yesterday. And so during that month, we had 45 users. They reduced about 20,000 vehicle miles traveled, which is a savings of almost 3 million pounds of CO2. If you multiply that out by 12 and can actually expand this program to say maybe 150 users a month, it'll actually be a decent impact on vehicle miles traveled as well as CO2 emissions. Is this the end all be all? Absolutely not. I'm not up here standing here saying this is going to solve the problem. Is this one tool to put in your toolbox? Absolutely. Transportation is multifaceted. The solution is multifaceted. But this is one tool that the community can use to try to work towards the goals that are going to be laid out in the climate action plan that Big Sky SNO is working on. So what are our goals moving forward from here? Well, first off, we want to build this out into a year-round commuter incentive program. So partner with local businesses, have a business each month, be the sponsor, and then work to engage as many commuters into using the platform and into changing some of their behavior. We're going to be doing some kind of follow-up from this with commuters as well to see if $15 is the right amount. Is it $20? Is it $25? What's the level that will encourage the most number of users to actually engage in some behavior change with that incentive? Another goal is to continue to work with businesses to develop TDM options. And so we're working with Big Sky Resort on their skier program right now, but we've had talks with the Yellowstone Club as well as Spanish Peaks as well as Big Sky about helping out with some employee transportation demand management. And so that's what the incentive program would be at the community level, but we can also work with individual businesses to actually build out like private van pools, other things like that, private carpool networks. So you're only carpooling with employees who work at the same business. Those are options that are there. And then also looking at options for tourists, visitors, and guests. With a resort community, not only do you have a lot of employees coming here, but you have a lot of people from other places. And some of the other resort communities have done cool incentive programs and options, letting people know about the buses that are available. And how do you get to the community and have options to get around without needing to be in your own car and driving wherever you go. So that's a few of our goals kind of moving forward. And again, a huge shout out to our partners and sponsors for the Big Sky One Less Car program, the Hungry Moose Market and Deli, Yellowstone Club Community Foundation, the Big Sky Conoco, and the Coffee Pot. And a huge thank you to Lizzie with Big Sky SNO for helping us kind of get our foot in the door here in Big Sky to continue to grow the work of Go Gallatin.
Perfect. And now we're going to turn to questions from the audience. As a reminder, for in-person audience, please speak into the microphone that Anna will be passing around. Say your first and last name. And if you are asking questions online, raise your hand, either with the raise the hand feature or press *9 if you're calling in on phone. And then you can, sorry, it's on the bottom, Anna. And then the same, ask your first and last name, and then you can ask questions. So if I can invite the speakers to come on back up, we will start with questions. All right, do we have any questions in the audience? Sierra.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful presentations. I have a question for the first group regarding the wildlife corridors. What is, you mentioned the project down in Jackson in Teton County and the $10 million local tax. What's the general percentage on these large scale projects, like what happened up in the Flathead Valley, of state and federal funds versus local funding?
So I can take a crack at that. It really depends. So transportation budgets typically have a breakdown for different types of projects of how much is federal, how much is state, and that varies from state to state. What we've seen with a lot of the wildlife crossing projects in the West is that there's this public-private partnership model that's been really helpful. So even when you get large federal funds, often there's a 20% match that states have to come up with. And so that is difficult often in pretty strapped state transportation budgets. So we've seen a lot of instances where you have private foundations or businesses and other groups coming together or counties to make up that state match. So really the public-private partnership is where it's at for making a lot of these things happen.
What about that 20% oftentimes?
So yes, it depends. I know a lot of projects in Montana are almost 90% federally funded. It depends on what transportation program it comes out of, and David Cack could probably explain all of these equations and stuff better than I can, but really pulling together federal, state, local, and private dollars is what we're seeing happen. Mhm.
Is there another question in the audience?
Hi, my name is Madeline McCluskey and I'm with the Yellowstone Club Community Foundation. I was just wondering, in your talk, you mentioned the cost of how much these road collisions cost like per dollar. But I think personally, and for a lot of people, it's not just like a dollar amount that matters to us. It's more of like emotional or, appeal kind of. So how do you convey those impacts that are not just dollar amounts to people and, to get their understanding and support?
Yeah, so right now, there's something called a pooled fund study happening, and that's basically a bunch of different state transportation agencies and also some Canadian provinces and Parks Canada basically put together a bunch of funds to do research on wildlife and transportation conflicts. And one piece of that is an updated cost benefit that includes passive use values for wildlife. And so that is forthcoming, but it takes into account things like tourism, wildlife viewing, the value that people have of just knowing that a species exists on the landscape. And then there's also social costs, especially in rural areas where people have to have a car to be able to get to work. So it's not just, the property damage, it's also how do I get my kids to school or how do I get to work? And so there's a lot more emotional and social costs and biological and conservation costs that aren't taken into account in those equations.
Hi, I'm David Stewart. Susie Smartich and I have been working on a project to reduce the speed limit along Highway 191 from the Jack Smith Bridge down to River House. And the commissioners have been very supportive of it. MDT is coming to do a speed study in June before school lets out, and hopefully we can capture some of the tourist traffic coming through and going to Yellowstone. Selfishly, that's from the human side of things. We both have teams that are driving, and that the numbers you presented on the growth in this area, we knew it on a gut level. But from a personal perspective, can we tie this into the wildlife thing? Is speed a factor in wildlife conflicts?
Yes, and this comes up a lot. The challenge with speed limits is enforcement. So some of the data that I presented on traffic volumes was actually part of a speed limit study in Western Wyoming from 2016 to 18. They lowered the speed limit in 6 different locations in mule deer winter range and migration areas from 70 to 55. Compliance was really low. So in general, people only actually slowed down about 3 to 5 miles per hour. Also, when we're driving at night, if we're really driving anything over like 35, 45 miles per hour, we're outrunning our headlights. So in order to get substantial reductions in wildlife vehicle collisions, we'd have to be going slower than that, especially at night. The other challenge is roads are designed to be driven at a certain speed. So you have kind of these 3 different things happening. You have the design speed of the road, you have the posted speed limit, and then you have the actual speed that people drive. And so when you reduce the posted speed limit on a road that has a high design speed, you're going to get speed dispersion, which is basically some people are going to go at the speed that they feel comfortable at, and some people are going to obey the posted speed limit. And then you get these really unsafe passing situations. So I know some speed studies that have been done show that it's better to keep the speed limit at the design speed, because if you artificially lower the speed that you're asking people to go. Some people are going to pay attention to it, some people aren't, and then they're going to be trying to pass the people who are actually obeying the posted speed limit because they're trying to go the design speed. So speed limit thing is complicated, basically.
Do we have any questions online? Who is it, Jenny? James Akers online. You'll be unmuted and you can ask your question.
Yeah, it's a simple one. Listening to the discussion this morning, they've all been about human impacts on the environment. And it strikes me that the demand or the level of human impact on the environment in and around a very delicate ecosystem, which the Yellowstone ecosystem is predicated on extremely rapid and unbridled development and population growth. So it strikes me that instead of thinking, as one of the slides indicated, that building out Big Sky is a fait accompli, perhaps we should be thinking about how logical it is to have unbridled growth in an area with this degree of environmental sensitivity. And
Hi,
yes,
Jim. Do you have a question for the speakers?
well, that is a question. Why aren't we focused on the primary problem, which is reducing the demand placed on the environment by environmental destruction and damage as a result of population, rather than trying to micromanage the behavior of that
Yeah.
problem?
Thank you, Jim.
That's my
Do you
question.
have a question specific to the organization and the work that they do?
That is specific to the work that they do.
Did that
I mean,
spark anything for any of you
okay,
guys?
here's a question. The Gallatin River is already polluted. We all know that. It's visible to the naked eye. Why don't we fix it? And why don't we
Perfect,
make
thank you.
sure that the development we do,
All right, Gallatin River Task Force. You spoke a lot about the work that you're doing. Do you have future plans?
Well, I know that we're going to receive an update later in the agenda. Kristen Gardner, our executive director, has some water updates, and they are specifically related to some policy changes and legislation. So I will hold and let Kristen address that. But as far as the work we're doing on the river, I mean, it's all connected. You need, like, I think Matt brought it up, you need a lot of different tools in your toolbox. And so there's policy changes, there's also the on the ground work. And so what we presented today was a lot of that on the ground work to protect the river. And so there's lots of tools, and we're looking at all of the different options and trying to get all of the tools out there to make as much impact as we can. And you got to take it from a lot of different angles.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely what today has been about, is layering partnerships, looking at it from different angles, but also as a community getting involved. So you've got some great organizations here. They've all got contact information. They've all got volunteer opportunities, and there's information to stay in touch with. So great. All right, we have another question online. Mark Stannard.
Hello, this is Mark. Thank you. My question is for the three speakers. I was impressed with each of this discussion, so thank you all. My question has to do around corporate contributions and support. Big Sky Resort is the one I'm looking to understand. What partnership is this really, this magnet for all the growth in the area, having with each of the three initiatives that were discussed today?
Thank you.
All right, so this is Matt with Go Gallatin. Specifically, we've been working with the resort on trying to develop some kind of employer TDM. We had actually had discussions with them. This was what, PC pre-COVID, and we had like built out an actual kind of program for them, and then COVID hit, and so that drastically changed. We've been following up in conversations with them, and the opportunity to kind of help them get a skier program going these next couple of weeks towards the end of the season is, I think, a good stepping ground to be able to build on the relationship and be able to kind of leverage some of that work towards addressing the needs that both their employees as well as resorts and tourists put on the community. And again, for us, this is, like I said, one tool in that toolbox. And I think you have to start somewhere. And so hopefully this will continue to grow and kind of build from there.
Well, so this is, I guess, not related to the Gallatin River restoration projects, but Big Sky Resort has been involved in, we are looking at Middle Fork restoration. We have a restoration plan on the Middle Fork, which is an impaired tributary of the Gallatin. There's 5 restoration projects identified. And the first project we actually kicked off last fall in partnership with Big Sky Resort. And that was a stream restoration project below Lake Lubinski Dam to reconnect the stream to the floodplain. And we added, they're called low impact restoration structures. So things like beaver dam analogs and post-assisted log structures, they're used to mimic what would naturally be occurring out there, adding more structure and to the stream to reconnect the floodplain, which improves water quality and water storage. And so that's one project we're working on with Big Sky Resort. There's also 2 other projects identified in that Middle Fork restoration plan that are on resort property. So we're advancing some of those conversations. And I believe there's several very preliminary projects we're looking at on the golf course more related to nutrient reduction, some more innovative strategies around wetland treatment.
So for our project, we've been in touch with the resort and really all of the major employers to ask them to let their employees know about the roads app and the interactive map, and hope we can gather as much information as we can from those who are coming here, commuting along the way. And to the best of our knowledge, they have given that information out, and we've been able to get a significant number of data points through that outreach.
That's wonderful. Thank you, guys. Are there any final questions from the audience here in person? All right. Well, like I said earlier, with 70% of our workforce commuting in, this roadway is incredibly important. And all of us enjoying the roadway, the forest, and the water, it's even more important. So just keep an eye out for information from this group. The chamber is going to send up a follow-up email to keep you connected with this group. And with that, I'd like to thank this team. Thank you all so much for the work that you do and for taking time this morning. I'd like to invite Anna up to just give a quick spiel on some things that the chamber has coming up, and then we're going to take a quick break and kick it to the Joint County Commission meeting.
Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you to all of our presenters. You guys were amazing. A lot of really good information. To our sponsors for today, and to all of you who attended. I'm looking out at this room at all these faces, and it's just so nice to see all of you. We really appreciate you engaging, and we couldn't do the work that we do without partnerships like yours. Most of you know, but I'm Anna Johnson, Director of Business Development with the Big Sky Chamber. And I have been a community member here for almost 17 years. And now with the chamber, member of the chamber team for a year and a half, coming up on 2 years. And I have the great pleasure of helping support our new and existing business members in our community here to achieve their goals. So we continue to see continued growth at the chamber. This last year, we had 62 new members, which was a record for the year, and really joining our efforts and initiatives for what we have going forward. So this slide shows our focuses in 5 buckets. Okay. Okay. Based on feedback we heard from our annual survey in the last year and in a lot of the conversations that we have with our community members, we really strive to deliver what our business community is asking us for. So we value your input. This includes access to businesses, to stakeholders in the community, to local and state representatives. It includes advocacy efforts, to amplify your needs and your voice as best we can. Various communication avenues that we put out there to both share resources, but also highlight the work of our businesses in the community. Development and educational offerings, including our Leadership Big Sky program, and that I'll talk about in a minute. And last but not least, our signature events and networking opportunities that really help our business community to connect. So we regularly host our monthly small business virtual roundtables. Thank you to those who've been jumping on those calls. We have a quarterly member meetup at the office in Town Center, and then a quarterly HR webinar that we've partnered with Together Consulting on. It's been really rewarding. We have a job board. If anyone has open positions, probably everybody in the room has open positions, please reach out. We can help you to gain some additional exposure on those. And then here's a taste of some of our upcoming events. We'd love your involvement and engagement to help these be a success. Thursday, May 5th, we changed the date last minute. Our annual shred day is here in Big Sky, where you can shred your documents at no cost, and happy to help you guys with that. Tuesday, June 21st, we are really excited to celebrate our 25th annual awards dinner. It's our business awards dinner, and our nominations are open right now. So please nominate your favorite businesses. We have 5 business categories. Additionally, this year with the 25th annual, we're celebrating the history of Big Sky, what's happened in the last 25 years, in this quarter of a century. And we'd love your photos. If anyone has historical photos that you can share with us, we have a portal where you can share those online or just send them to us in email. Our next quarterly member meetup will be June 28th, 4 p.m. At our office. And then Caitlin executes this amazing program. If anyone is not familiar yet with the Leadership Big Sky program, we have applications open this summer, August 1st. We do cap the program at 20 participants. We had over 30 applications this last year. So it's a very popular program to really develop your leadership skills, build your network across various industries, and then also get a look behind the scenes at what's happening with business here. Oh, there we go. And which way do we go?
What's happening? Well, there you go. A look at the Joint County Commission meeting.
Sorry. Preview of what's to come.
You're going absolutely wrong direction.
Back?
I am
Back.
I think people are ready for a fresh meeting.
So we would love for you to apply, or have your staff apply for Leadership Big Sky. Here we go. Thanks, Caitlin. And then our golf tournament's coming up, ever popular, sells out every year. And then our first annual with Resort Tax, we are going to be kicking off the first annual community week. Save the date, October 3rd through 7th. Would love to have you involved. Please follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, sign up for our newsletter if you don't already get that. We do have a couple new initiatives with the DEI committee that is kicking off first meeting April 25th, and then a women's leadership, business leadership mastermind that's been really successful. So if you have questions about how to get involved in any of those initiatives or get your staff involved, please do reach out. Thank you to our sponsors. We look forward to having you engaged in the coming year. And please reach out to Caitlin or myself or Brad anytime with feedback, ideas, or thoughts. Thank you very much.
A quick break, reshuffle, and then be right back to the Joint County Commission. Thank you, everybody.
It's good to see you again. Okay, that's Big Sky Water. Yes, please, thank you. Do you know which one is which is which is which?
This is gonna be Canyon District.
Okay. Oh, stop sharing. Hi, I'm Hannah Burke. I'm with Madison County. I'm I'm gonna be taking minutes. So this table's gonna clear out because they're gonna go sit up there. So if you want to sit front and center, we will be recording it. Jenny here's with, say what?
let me start over. For those of you that are listening virtually, if you would like to share public comment, we will be collecting it from those people here in person first, and then we will address you online. If you are online, please use the raise your hand feature to indicate that you would like to share public comment. If you're attending virtually via phone, use *9 to raise your hand. The moderator will let you know that it is your turn to share your comment and unmute you so that those of us in the room can hear you. Once unmuted, please state your first and last name prior to sharing your public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes, so please keep it short. You will be muted if you go over the 5 minutes of your comment. And please note, if you're listening virtually, public comment may only be shared via Zoom. Comments on the Facebook live feed will not be accepted as public comment. And again, thanks for joining.
Thank you. I'll call this joint meeting of the Gallatin County Commission, Madison County Commission, and the Resort District to order. I'm Joe Skinner, one of the Gallatin County Commissioners, and I'm going to have everybody just introduce themselves that are up here, starting with.
All right, good morning, everybody. Scott McFarland, one of the Gallatin County Commissioners.
John Heckler, Madison County Commissioner.
Kevin Germain, Big Sky Resort Area District.
Dan Allhands, Madison County Commissioner.
Sarah Blackda, Big Sky Resort Tax Board.
Zach Brown, Gallatin County Commission.
Sierra Wolf, Big Sky Area Resort Tax Board.
Ron Nye, Madison County Commissioner.
C. Johnson, Big Sky Resort Area District Board, among other things.
Okay, we're going to move along fairly quickly today, and I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is awesome that so many people show up to these meetings. Shows your interest in this community, and we're anxious to hear what everybody has to say and what you have to say to us. So thank you for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Germain for a few minutes.
I'll keep this very brief because we have a pretty full agenda today. To echo what Commissioner Skinner said, I really want to give a big thanks to everybody in this audience, as well as those that are joining online. This is local government at work, and your voice really does make a difference. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time and involvement of everybody in this room. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Caitlin. For those of you who have not met, my name is Kevin Germain, and I'm on my 6th year of serving you guys, the Big Sky community on the Big Sky Resort Area District. If I had to assign a theme to today's agenda, it would be addressing growth through the spirit of collaboration. I've seen many change in our communities over the 20 years I've worked up here, and the post-pandemic, these changes are happening faster and faster. Fortunately, I have seen more cooperation and collaboration with our local leaders, state representatives, as well as our federal representatives than ever before. And so I'd like to personally thank the Madison County Commissioners, Dan Allhands, Ron Nye, and John Heckler, Gallatin County Commissioners, Scott McFarland, Joe Skinner, and Zach Brown, as well as our Madison County representatives. We have Representative Ken Walsh with us here today, Senator Jeff Wellborn, our Gallatin County representatives, Representative Jane Gillette, who will be joining us, and I see Senator Pat Flowers in our audience. And our federal representatives, we have Cindy from Senator Dane's office. We've had a lot of help from Senator Tester's as well as Representative Rosendale's office. You're going to hear this throughout our meeting today. And last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about the Tiger Grant. And I would like to give a really big shout out to the Montana Department of Transportation, specifically Director Mac Long, COO Dwayne Kelly, as well as our administrator out of the Butte District, Bill Fogarty. You will see throughout this agenda how each one of these individuals I just named has been leaning in to help our community out. To refresh your memory or to inform you that are just joining us for your first joint county commissioner resort tax meeting, we have a subcommittee that has been meeting regularly in between these biannual meetings. It includes myself, Danny Burschwell from Resort Tax. We have Commissioner McFarling and Jim Dorr from Gallatin County and Commissioner Heckler from Madison County. We meet every other month, and our meeting in December, we focused on emergency services. Our meeting last month was focused on transportation, and there's plenty of issues that come up in between those meetings. Today, you're going to get an update on all those efforts. The progress being made just highlights how important this collaboration is. And so, and parting, I just want to say thank you very much for being here today, and your voice really does make a difference.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to introduce David Cack. I'm going to talk to us about the Big Sky Transportation District.
Hello, and thank you, commissioners. My name is Enya Williams. I am the board chair of the Transportation District. And I wanted to recognize that David is going to be leaving town this August. And on behalf of, I've had the distinct pleasure for 16 years to work with David on the Transportation District. And on behalf of our community and the Transportation District, I'd just like to thank you so much for your service over the time. In addition, we're very lucky to have Darren Bruckman here. Darren is going to come on as the executive director for the Transportation District. Darren's here in the audience today. And Darren comes to us from Jackson Hole with 7 years experience running the START Transportation District down there in Jackson Hole. So he's very familiar with small town, mountain town issues that we have with transportation. So we very much look forward to having him start here this spring and being able to work with David for a couple of months before he leaves us in August. So with that, I'll leave it to David, but thank you, David, for all your service to our community.
All right, well, very quickly, just to let folks know where we are. We've had a very good winter of ridership. As folks know, it's been a busy season here at Big Sky. Our ridership year to date, our fiscal year starts July 1 and goes through June. So through March, our ridership is up about 30% compared to last year. So lots of people riding the bus. As mentioned earlier in some of the presentations, we know a lot of folks commute from the greater Bozeman area down here for work. So we're doing what we can to get people on the bus. Certainly, as Matt mentioned earlier, those other options of carpooling and van pooling, and certainly appreciate working with the big employers to get people on the bus and providing incentives to get people using those other options as well. Our winter schedule ends on Sunday, April 24th, when we will switch over to our shoulder season schedule. Our summer schedule starts a little bit earlier than usual this year. May 23rd is when we'll transition from the shoulder season over to the summer schedule. Looking forward to continuing to having people ride the bus during the summer. As Enya mentioned, we're very happy to have Darren Brugman joining us. He's got even more transit experience than I do. And certainly his last 7 years in Jackson are going to be very insightful for what's going on here in Big Sky. I would let everyone know that we do have an opening on the board. We need a Madison County representative. So if you live in Madison County and are interested in joining the Transportation District, please let Enya or I know. And again, as mentioned earlier and throughout this discussion, as Kevin mentioned, it's about partnerships. Certainly our big partner is the Resort Area District, is our biggest provider of local match, and we couldn't make Skyline happen without them. And we appreciate the businesses who really promote Skyline and their employees riding it. So that's my little quick update, and thank you so much.
David. I'd like to introduce Tori Sproul, Executive Director of Child Care Connection.
All right, good morning. Thanks for having me today. I'm Tori Sproles and I am the Executive Director of Childcare Connections. It's so great to see a lot of familiar faces out there. I've talked to a lot of you over the last couple of years just around the issues of childcare, and that's what I'm here to talk to you today about. So just a little brief introduction about what Childcare Connections is. We are a childcare resource and referral agency, and we do cover Region 4, which is Gallatin Park, Marr, Lewis and Clark, Jefferson, and Broadwater counties. And so I know that Madison County is also here in the audience, and we do have a sister organization, Butte 4Cs, that covers that area as well. However, we do work very closely in collaboration. So basically, just to get started, we all know that childcare is an economic development and workforce development issue. To begin, I do want to just highlight some of the challenges and look at some statistics just briefly before I talk about some of the solutions and what we're doing to change this issue. So as you can see here, according to the US Department of Health and Human Services, childcare is affordable if it costs no more than 7% of a family's income. By this standard, only 12% of Montana families can afford infant care. So as you see here, annual infant care is $95.18, and that is really, really high. So I basically took out Gallatin County and Madison County just to give you some perspective. In Gallatin County, for an infant and a toddler, a family spends over 25% of their income. And then with that same family would spend about 35% of their income on childcare in Madison County. So pretty eye-opening statistics just around what that looks like in regards to that 7% of family income. So one of the things that's really hard for us to explain in my line of work is that childcare is expensive, right? We all say, oh my gosh, the cost is so high and I can't afford that. However, despite the high cost of childcare, early childhood professionals are not making any money. Childcare programs are not meeting their bottom line. It just does not pencil out. So we always look at kind of why is childcare so expensive when all of these early childhood educators have a bachelor's degree and have all of this experience in early childhood. And this just kind of breaks it down a little bit for you in the fact that just parent fees alone don't make ends meet. It's just not enough funding. It's a labor intensive field. All of us who may have children or have been around children know how much work that is. And then it requires a low adult to child ratio. So childcare licensing has put into statute ratios that obviously look for the health and safety of children, but it costs to employ all of these people. So looking at just a general breakdown of what a childcare program cost looks like is 65% is gone to personnel, 23% is classroom materials, and 12% is overhead. So if you think about a center with 40 full-time children, they need a minimum of 10 teachers. And that's just the bare minimum. That is if the teachers were working 60, 70 hours a week, that would be the bare minimum of what they would need for that. So a sobering fact here, just to reflect back on the previous slide, is that a median childcare worker in Montana would have to spend 45% of their earnings to be able to put their own child in infant care. So here's one of the biggest things. Obviously, similar to other industries, our childcare workforce is struggling. Nationwide, we've only seen about an 84% recovery since the pandemic began. And so the childcare workforce faces many challenges. So recruitment and retention, the stress of the job, cost of care, like we just talked about. And one of the biggest things that we're trying to mitigate is just they're undervalued. These early childhood professionals are not seen, treated, or compensated as a profession. And we have some of the highest credentials taking care of our youngest citizens. So possible solutions are listed here, and we'll talk a little bit more about those when we talk about what we're doing. But obviously, federal funding, financial aid to providers, respect for the profession is huge. If early childhood professionals were looked at similarly to elementary school teachers, those types of things, they would be compensated better, more respect, you name it. Employer-supported childcare, and then of course, support for the workforce. So finally, you guys know all of that stuff, but I have to always preface my conversations with that. But finally, what are we doing about it? So the pandemic taught us and also kind of put childcare out in the forefront of everybody's mind. During the pandemic, we were busy. My office was busy, childcare providers were busy, our work did not stop. And so right now we're kind of trying to build on that momentum and really try to figure out solutions for now and also mitigate challenges and barriers later. So one of the things that is going on is statewide. So statewide, you probably know that ARPA has granted $110 million for childcare and has allocated it into these categories here. So stabilization grants really are looking at grants that will help currently operating programs to help with operation expense and hopefully create a sustainable infrastructure going forward. Workforce incentives is a very monetary incentive for childcare providers. So anyone currently working in the field this year will get up to $1,600 just for being in the field and being in the field for a whole year. Expansion grants, which have not been released yet, but those will look exactly like they sound, helping childcare providers expand. Innovation grants is something that we'll talk about a little bit more, but the innovation grants will be coming out very soon. And those are looking at really community-wide just efforts to fix this problem, whatever that looks like. And innovative is definitely the name of the game for that one, because the sky's the limit. Just looking at what can we do in our communities to help fix this problem. And then licensing regulations revision is a big part of it. One of the biggest barriers to childcare is licensing. Childcare licensing has health and safety standards. Even though they're bare minimum health and safety standards, there are some barriers for employers, the general public that want to open childcare, so on and so forth. So they are looking at some of those revisions to make it a little bit more capable for people to open childcare, including drop-ins, preschools, that sort of thing. So locally, and what Caitlin kind of invited me to talk about a little bit is the Child Task Force. So the Child Task Force, and of course, if you're in the early childhood field at all, we have to have acronyms for everything. But the Child Task Force is the Cooperative, Holistic, Innovative Local Design Task Force. And basically, this started out as 3 or 4 stakeholders just coming to the table and saying, we need to do something about this problem. And it has now grown to all of those task force members, and multiple people are participating within those agencies and as stakeholder groups. But basically what this has looked like is we have a larger group that meets every month, and then we have our little work groups that meet individually and have their own agendas and goals to work on. So childcare workforce obviously is a huge thing. So we're looking at salary studies. What would be an applicable wage? What would be something that would be a livable wage for a childcare provider? So we're looking at a lot of those things. Professionalizing the field, obviously bringing down that stigma of I'm not just a babysitter, but I actually am a professional. And supports for people entering the workforce. So looking at pre-apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship programs, partnering with high schools and universities and all those sorts of things to kind of build up the workforce so that we have more people entering into the workforce. Our financial group is looking at innovative ways to utilize financial solutions to figure out what we're going to do. One of those things is they are creating a financial model for childcare businesses. So taking into consideration some employer-supported childcare models that are already out there and putting a financial kind of model together so that we can come to you as a business, come to you as community members and say, this is what it might look like to put up a childcare program. Community initiatives, access to training for childcare. A lot of things are surrounded around workforce and just supporting the current infrastructure that's out there. So breaking down any barriers that they might have. Shared services for providers, obviously looking at, for Big Sky and West Yellowstone specifically, looking at ways to get people here to do the work. So Morningstar here in town, Little Rangers in West Yellowstone, super hard to get people to actually travel here to work every day. And so looking at trying to break down some of those barriers, get some funding for that as well. And then business supports, surveying employees and employers about childcare needs. Employer supported tiered implementation of employer supported care is also huge. So this is just a really basic visual for you just about what employer supported childcare might look like. These are our 3 tiers that we're looking at in this group and just across Montana. So Family Forward actually created these tiers initially, and we're kind of breaking those down in our local group to make them more digestible and be able to talk to businesses a little bit more fully about what employer supported childcare looks like. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but definitely Tier 3 is kind of that big piece where everyone's like, oh, employer supported means I have to open an on-site childcare. That's not always the case, but that definitely is one thing that a lot of employers are looking at is on-site childcare, off-site childcare, slot care, some sort of co-op to bring businesses together to provide childcare slots. And one of the things is that on-site childcare has proved to result in about 60% of reduction in staff turnover. And so, of course, again, childcare is a workforce development issue. If staff are coming to work for you and you don't have to have time off for all of those types of things, they're definitely more productive as well. My favorite slide, how you can help. So one of the things obviously that I didn't mention that we all know is there's just not enough childcare out there. But I wanted you to kind of see why and what needs to happen to actually get childcare opening up. But here's how you can help. So there's a couple different ways. So the Child Task Force in general is working at a collaborative approach to that innovations grant that I talked about through ARPA. And so we will be looking at kind of a Gallatin county-wide, rural community-wide, trying to figure out how we can ask for the most dollars and have the most bang for our buck as far as how we can support all of the communities involved. Big Sky and West Yellowstone are a huge part of that. So one of the first things on there is funding. So the innovations grant needs a match. So in-kind funding, cash funding, those types of things. So whatever we get from the grant obviously needs that match. Community budgets. So a lot of our local communities, and because we serve 6 counties, are really looking at community budgets, city budgets, those types of things. How do we add line items to those budgets to make things a little bit more sustainable for childcare in our region? Sponsoring existing childcare, providing materials, monetary supports, travel stipends, and transportation. That's one of the huge things here, definitely Big Sky and West. Housing and recruitment of staff. Childcare scholarships for families. We do have a childcare subsidy that's statewide, but it's very underutilized because it functions on the federal poverty level. And right now it's 185% of the federal poverty level to actually even qualify for that subsidy. So we're looking at and asking for a lot of funding and grant opportunities for some gap scholarships to help families even afford childcare. Participate in the Child Task Force work groups. So Caitlin is a great avenue to reach out to if you're interested in any of those work groups that I talked about, but it's a great thing to bring stakeholders and expertise from other outside entities to really fix this problem as a community. Active engagement with policymakers is really important. We've had lots of great conversations with city and county commissioners, legislators. Representative Gillette has been super active in this area. And then employer supported childcare. So becoming a champion of childcare is really important. The businesses is where we really need that partnership, and we really need help from businesses to help not only support their employees, but also just sustain the system as a whole. So I know that Caitlin has sent out via the chamber some childcare surveys around employees and employers and what we need and what they need for childcare and what the challenges and barriers are. That is something that I strongly encourage you to fill out because we are learning more about the need, more about the challenges, and trying to mitigate those as we see them. So lots of different ways to get involved. And I just really appreciate you letting me come today and talk a little bit about childcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. I'll introduce Steve Johnson. He's going to talk on behalf of Big Sky Park District, one of the many hats he wears in the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. This is just going to be a quick update. There is a park district in Big Sky, known as the Big Sky Trails Recreation and Park District. It was formed in 2012, and it includes a district in the Madison County side, the Big Sky Mountain Trails Recreation and Park District. On the Gallatin County side, the Big Sky Meadow Trails Recreation and Park District. And it functions as a single unit under the terms of an interlocal agreement. So that interlocal agreement was originally drafted back in 2012 when these two districts were formed. It expired in February of this year. What we've been about is renewing the interlocal agreement to stay in business. And we began to look at this and review it last fall. There's a lot going on in Big Sky and resources are limited. So it's only just recently that we've been able to put together a draft of a revised and updated interlocal agreement. And many thanks to Erin Arnold, an attorney with the Gallatin County Attorney's Office, for doing that review and drafting work. She has created a revised draft that is much simpler and more direct than the original one. So in my mind, it's been an improvement. That is now being reviewed by Madison County, as well as her work, Erin Arnold's work from Gallatin County. So I think we're closing in on a good draft that will allow us to go forward. The next step is to really get resolutions in front of both county commissions to adopt the revised draft, and we will be back in business. And that is our first order of business. These districts were both originally created as non-taxing entities, meaning they have no mill levy property tax authority, and we do not intend to pursue that. On the other hand, both the original interlocal agreement and the revised draft do provide for a per parcel assessment, and we're looking into implementing that as a way of providing a source of funding for parks and trails maintenance and other things that are essential to the operation of parks and trails here in our community. So our first priority is to get that interlocal agreement finalized and adopted to get back in business. And we will be in touch with the community as we go forward to pursue consideration of implementing the per parcel assessment. And I think that's all I have to share. If you have any questions, look me up. Call me anytime, 539-6660. I'm around. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. I think we just recently put that on our agenda to approve that. Yeah, the next couple of weeks. Okay, I'll introduce Kristen Gardner for the Gallatin River Task Force.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you first to the county commissioners and the resort tax board, as well as the Big Sky Chamber for organizing this event. I think it's a great opportunity for our community to get together and connect on important issues. I wanted to follow up on a hot topic, I think, at the last joint county commission meeting, and I wasn't able to attend. And that was talking about water supply and the concern in our community for the amount of water that we have and if it will sustain both our community as well as the health of our rivers. And so I wanted to update you on a bunch of studies that we're involved in, as well as other partners in our community. The first is the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology. They've been conducting 2 groundwater investigation projects, one in the Big Sky drainage area and then one down in Gallatin Canyon. And the exciting news is that the one in the Big Sky drainage system actually is just about ready to be published. And so we're hoping to coordinate a public meeting at the end of May, where I hope that as many people attend that meeting as attend this meeting. And you can learn about what they have learned from this large scale groundwater project that was meant to better understand the water supply in the Big Sky drainage and how our community growth will impact that. So hopefully we'll see you all there. The Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology is also conducting another study down in Gallatin Canyon. So that is the area between the Conoco essentially and the school. And that study is looking at how growth and development is impacting both water quality and quantity in the Gallatin Canyon. For that study, they're just finished the data collection. They're hoping to finish that final report by the end of the year. And then it'll go through the internal review process, which can be quite lengthy, but I'll try to be as loud as I can so that we can get that information to our community, because it really is integral in the planning for future growth. I also want to call up a source capacity, a water source capacity update that the Water and Sewer District is conducting. And I believe the draft is going to be completed in April. And Ron, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially what that will do is look at the water supply for the Water and Sewer District and how much water they have for future growth and what sort of strategies they can implement to secure more water. Moving on to studies that the task force is leading, we're just wrapping up a water conservation and drought management plan. And at a high level, one of the big takeaways from that study is that the physical water is going to actually be the limiting factor in our community compared to the legal water. So water rights, essentially. So the big question is, do we have enough water to support our community? And I have a few thoughts and ideas on how we can figure that out. The Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology studies will provide a lot of information, but I also think that we need to carry these a little bit further. And so we're proposing to do a water budget analysis. We're fundraising for that right now. We've asked Resort Tax to partially fund this project. And essentially that looks at the water inflows to the system and the water flows out of the system, and thinks about not only like snowpack and rain as inputs to the system, but also how does wastewater recycling impact the amount of water that we have. So hopefully we'll be able to get that funded, and that will really help us strategize both water conservation strategies as well as wastewater recycling strategies to most benefit the amount of water that we have in the system. And then finally, we're also looking to model future snowpack. So snow is the biggest source of water to our streams and our local drinking water aquifers. And we've been approached by the US Geological Survey to model historical snowpack and then project future snowpack. We really need to understand how much snow that we'll have so that we can adequately plan for both the water supply for our drinking water as well as for our rivers and streams. So that is all that I wanted to touch base on, just to let you know that what's going on in the world of water supply. And I encourage you all, we will get the word out about this meeting to present the results from the Bureau study that will happen in late May, but I think it'll be really enlightening and help our community plan to grow in the most water-friendly way. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Now we'll hear from Grant Hilton from the Big Sky Owners Association.
Hello, commissioners, community leaders, residents, and friends. My name is Grant Hilton. I've been a property owner here in Big Sky since, let's say, 1998. And I've lived here essentially full-time since mid-2012. And I'm a member of the board of the Big Sky Owners Association, as well as a number of other community groups here. As a representative of BSOA, I'm speaking for more than 2,400 property owners in our jurisdiction. In the past, the BSOA has worked with Madison Gallatin County commissioners to review proposals affecting our community and our memberships. We appreciate each of the commissioners' groups and being able to talk to you when we raise issues of concern, and also with your staffs. We'd also like to thank the Chamber for organizing events like this where we can have a forum to bring up issues of public concern, not to maybe settle them today, but to have them recognized. So as Kevin said earlier, we can work on these issues together for a most optimal solution. Today, I'm going to raise some concerns about some cumulative impacts of approved developments in Big Sky and how they've impacted our community and natural resources. Cumulative impacts that have largely been unaddressed, although there is progress that has been made. The topics I'd like to talk about are traffic safety, and it will be brief, so don't get concerned about the number of topics. Traffic safety, emergency planning, water resources, and natural resources, or water-related resources. Let's start with traffic safety. Traffic congestion on Lone Mountain Trail frequently results in a failing level of service during peak seasons. If you've ever tried to turn left on the north side of Lone Mountain Trail during the peak hours, or right on the south side to go up to the mountain, you know it's a challenge. I'm reminded of an earlier example of the elk trying to cross the road and he's got a barrier. And it's something we face every day. We look forward to the future of the road work that is going to be done by the Tiger Grant, which will hopefully address a lot of the problems from where Lone Mountain Trail or Highway 64 meets 191 up to Town Center and a bit beyond. That's a great thing. We want you, the counties, to stay involved in that. We're going to hear about the amount of money here in a minute, I think, because it's an essential thing that we get this project done. And we want to know that it's important to our community. And we want to let you know that we want you involved if necessary to make sure this project is completed. In addition, your review and consideration of any new developments should assume a substantial increase in traffic congestion for the entire length of Lone Mountain Trail, clear up to the resort. We want to make sure that we believe that a traffic study to look at the capacity of these roads and the safety issues should be done so that we can better understand how new developments will impact our road capacities and safety issues. Therefore, the BSOA recommends that appropriate studies be provided to lessen or understand these potential impacts to our community. Emergency planning. It's not a matter of if, but when a natural disaster will occur in Big Sky. Currently, there is no clearly defined emergency evacuation plan for the residents and visitors. According to data from the Big Sky Chamber of Commerce, there's about 20,000 people here in the Big Sky area on peak season days. We want to ensure that both counties are working together to prevent a potential mass casualty in Big Sky due to incomplete or inadequate emergency egress plans. We want to ensure that there is an evacuation, particularly from our higher mountain areas, that incorporates not only Highway 64 Lone Mountain Trail, but the Jack Creek Road. And we know there's work that has already been started on some of this, but it's essential that we have a complete emergency evacuation plan in place. It's something we don't have today. So to get that, we believe that we're going to have to hire some type of outside party to develop studies to help us understand this. And we look forward to working with the chamber, who is also looking at these issues and cooperating with them in their efforts. Water resources. It's unclear as to whether the Big Sky area has enough water resources to support the number of proposed developments coming down the pipeline. Water resources in Big Sky are finite. Continuous rapid growth has significantly increased the demand for fresh potable water to meet existing as well as planned development needs. The addition of new user hookups as well as planned development needs without proven capacity could severely degrade the service provided to a substantial portion of our community. We want to encourage both counties to take sincere long-term availability and sustainability into consideration during their review and approval of new Big Sky developments. We want to look at the work that we heard Kirsten make by Gallatin River Task Force and the work that is being done by the Big Sky Water and Sewer Department to put a comprehensive water availability study together. So we'll see what these results of these new studies are showing, but we need a comprehensive water availability and supply study done for our mountain so that we know whether we can approve that new developments can be sustained and that existing residents can still have their water without being severely restricted. We find it, the findings of this study can then be updated into a growth policy. This policy, our current policy has not been updated since 2013. It would not be prudent to rush major new projects without an updated development plan. Natural resources. The Middle Fork and West Fork of the Gallatin River and the wetlands associated with them have been negatively impacted over the last few years due to a heavy concentration of nitrogen and runoff. Section 2 of our zoning regulations in Gallatin County clearly states, among several purposes, to promote and preserve of wildlife and fish habitat. The Middle Fork and South Fork do not currently meet Montana's water quality standards, primarily due to nitrogen concentrations. Projects approved by the Planning Board and Commissioners need to consider the purpose and intent of growth policies and adopted regulations. With regular unacceptable traffic delays, algae blooms in the streams, among other impacts we are already experiencing, it is obvious that Big Sky is starting to see some signs of overdevelopment. The resources that people have come here to enjoy are finite and fragile. We would ask both county boards to keep that in mind and to keep in mind the results of the traffic safety, emergency evacuation, water resources when they're making decisions on new developments. We want to make sure that the new developments and prospects are done in a sustainable manner without negatively impacting our resources and current users in an unacceptable way.
Thank you. We have a lot of transportation issues going on here, and we'll talk about the Tiger Grant bids and next steps. Commissioner McFarland, you want to start that off? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really excited to give updates on the Tiger Grant. This has been, I think, in the works for, I think it was first applied for 6 years ago, awarded 4 years ago, and we still haven't gotten any work done. But there has been a tremendous amount of activity in the last few weeks, but specifically the last 6 months. There's been a lot of collaboration and work amongst the groups that I mentioned previously. To refresh everybody's memory, originally the Tiger Grant went out to bid, I believe it was about a year ago. Only one bid was received, and at that time it was over $3 million over budget. Gallatin County, thankfully, has been the administrator of this grant. The decision at that time was to table it because the funds weren't available. In the interim, there was some work that was completed. Lone Mountain Land Company, in cooperation with Gallatin County, was able to get about $1.2 million worth of work done on the turn lanes by the Powder Light project. The Montana Department of Transportation got about $300,000 or $400,000 worth of work done at the signal. And so $3.3 million over budget. There was about $1.7 million worth of work. So you would think that the gap was narrow. Well, it went out to bid again in the fall, or sorry, early winter. And at that time, 2 people responded to the bid. They didn't, I believe there was some discussion with Gallatin County to extend the length of the time for them to submit the bid. Those bids have been received. And even though there was $1.7 million worth of work done, it was still $3.1 million over budget. So the group has been chasing the increase in pricing. The low bid is $3.1 million over budget. What has happened here in the last 30 days, and this is, tying back to my opening remarks, I've not seen more collaboration amongst these different groups than on this exact topic. The state of Montana, MDT, stepped up with $2.1 million of the $3.1 million shortfall. So that left us with $1 million gap. That $1 million was committed to in the last week, a good thanks to Gallatin County, Resort Tax, and Madison County, who have all agreed to split that remaining $1 million a third, a third, a third. So about $333,000. So as I said here today, huge thanks to, first of all, Gallatin County, who's been a partner with us in administering the grant, and huge thanks to the state of Montana, who's really stepped up with the bulk of the funding. But I can say in these discussions, which have been pretty regular over the last little bit to get this done, I have not seen any hesitancy from Madison County, Gallatin County, nor the state, nor Resort Tax to help fund. So a huge thanks. I want to give them all another round of applause. Commissioner Heckler was asking if we're going to mention buses to reduce traffic. As part of the Tiger Grant funding, there is a significant amount of dollars that is going to go to purchase new buses and vans for our community, and that will really help on some of the traffic issues that we have. So next steps. Danielle Scharf with Sanderson Stewart is listening in. So Danielle, if I mess this up, please interject. As I mentioned, we now have all the commitments for the funding. The next step is to amend the Tiger Grant agreement with the Federal Highway Administration. And then once that agreement is amended, then Gallatin County, as the administrator of the grant, will award the grant. Then the contract documents will be prepared. And throughout this whole process, as we work with the contractor that gets awarded the grant, we will work on an exact start date and scope of work for 2022. And they believe, per the terms of the agreement, they have 3 years to complete the work. We are pushing hard to get as much work done in 2022 and 2023 as possible, so we can finally fulfill the goal of the Tiger Grant. And the last thing MDT has also offered to help out is to pay for a firm to help with communication throughout construction, so we can inform you, the Big Sky community, of the traffic delays and other inconveniences that will come with a highway project or a road project. So those are our next steps, more to come. And I believe through this partnership, the next steps will be both broadcast and communicated to our community.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this? Danielle? Okay. Thank you, Kevin, for that update. Been work in progress for a long time. I think you skipped a step too. I think we actually went up and did one for the no bidder. That's correct. I'm sorry. I missed that one. It's been very discouraging at times, but get it done. Okay, Bill Fogarty, would you want to talk to us about planning? Once again, I'm going to step in for Bill Fogarty, who could not be here. Mr. Fogarty is our administrator for our region out of his youth district. Bill has recently been, well, let me back up. Andy Birchwell of Resort Tax has recently been pushing on this, and with great cooperation from NDT on joint planning efforts, not just on Montana 664, but also the Highway 191 corridor. So there was a corridor study complete in 2020 that actually has helped kind of refine some of the Tiger Grant ideas. And since that time, we've been working with MDT to foster this partnership through the Tiger Grant discussions. We're currently working with MDT on a framework to facilitate planning and traffic mitigation outside of the Tiger Grant. We realize the Tiger Grant is not the silver bullet. There's a lot more work to be done. And so at this point, I look at the Tiger Grant as just the tip of the iceberg about what this community, in partnership with the counties, in partnership with the state, the feds, needs to work on with Highway 191 and Montana 64. So we are getting a working group started that will be meeting regularly and in earnest on those topics. So we hope to have a lot more to report on the 191-64 long-term planning at our next joint county resort tax meeting in the fall.
Thank you, Kevin. John, Commissioner Heckler, did you want to talk about the emergency egress?
Well, I was gonna turn it over to Kevin.
I got it.
What were you gonna say, Kevin?
Commissioner Heckler has been very active on Jack Road, so.
Well, I don't know how many, you know, I became a newbie commissioner last November, and it took about a month to sandblast that newbie feeling off my face. One of the issues or challenges that I talk slower than our previous speakers. I might talk more than our previous speakers. One of the challenges that we all know of, and I inherited in District 3 of Madison County, is Jack Creek Road. It's already been mentioned, I think 4 times so far today, about a need for an evacuation plan. And seeing that Jack Creek Road is one of 2 exits out of Big Sky, it's pretty obvious to most, and certainly to me, that Jack Creek Road has an important part to be played in any emergency plan. And I don't want to take any wind out of Greg, who's coming up to talk about this a little later. But what we have started out on, and on the agenda, I have to say, it calls an emergency egress project. I would think maybe the word project is a little premature, but I will tell you, in the think, plan, do process of delivery of anything, we are definitely out of the thinking and into the planning stage. We don't know, we don't have an emergency plan in place. But what we can do and what we are doing is trying to determine how much traffic can Jack Creek Road handle an emergency situation, and I'll call it going downhill. We're on the earlier stages of that, but we can contribute to the overall emergency plan by at least providing our estimate of what Jack Creek Road can handle in an emergency situation. Example, let's assume we have 300 cars trying to get down the hill in a 2-hour period. If we look at running dual cars down the hill at around 20 miles an hour, can we handle that? I think the answer is no right now, but we'll be getting into that. There are several areas which I call tights, single lane bridges, tight turns, blind spots, road running very, very close to the existing creek. And we're going to define those tights and then see what it takes to eliminate them so that traffic can flow better. The next part of this is I'm sure that there'll be some tights that may not be able to be, in my term, cured. And in that case, we're looking at having locations up the road from those tights for emergency vehicles to park off to the side so that emergency assistance can be there and help direct traffic out. That's about what we're doing, and we're trying to come up with a solution and to become a firm part of an evacuation plan so that when that whole plan is put together, this will be just one part of it. That's it.
Mr. Chair, may I add? Because Commissioner Commissioner Heckler in Madison County is not taking credit right now for some of the work that has already been completed and in progress. Last year, Madison County committed $1.2 million to fixing their 3 miles of road along Jack Creek. That work started last spring, and I believe it starts up again here in a week and a half. And so there is work being done on the ground. That 3 miles, this $1.2 million only accomplishes, I believe, improving 80% of that 3 miles to the county standard of 24-foot top width. And so it's this remaining 20% that they are now investigating. And it's probably the most expensive portion of the project. So Madison County has committed dollars to working on that, and those dollars are at work right now.
Thank you, Kevin and Commissioner. Greg Meagard, could you come and talk to us about public safety needs assessment and evacuation plan?
Good morning, everybody. Greg Meagard, Fire Chief, Big Sky Fire Department. First, thank you, commissioners, for being here again today in Big Sky. It's great to see you guys. Talk about wildland fire evacuation. We've heard it multiple times, any challenges in that. I want to also talk about prevention and planning. First off, a big thanks to both Madison and Gallatin County Commissioners for your assistance last summer. For the first time in Big Sky, it was an unpopular decision, but we banned fireworks due to the dry conditions in Big Sky. And couldn't have done it without both commissioners cooperating in that process with a resolution to do that. I'm just putting it out there now. We may be looking at it again this summer, depending on where we go on the spring wish that we do or don't receive. So even though we're deep in our winter season, Big Sky Fire is always continually looking at ways to improve not only our wildland capability with partnerships, and everybody's been talking about partnerships. BizRad's a big partnership for us on that. We have built and put into service 2 brand new Type 5 wildland engines last summer. This year, we're building a Type 3 wildland engine, again, to enhance our response operations when it does come to wildland fire. And then we also engaged in a partnership with Moonlight, Spanish Peaks, Big Sky Resort, and we're going to come and speak to the BizRad group again this year, the board. We installed a panel camera up on Lone Peak. And that panel camera, unfortunately, didn't go in until late September, August, I guess it was. And what it is, it's a camera that does a 360 view constantly. And it has the ability to detect smoke columns, whether it's a controlled burn or an actual wildland fire. It gets processed through their system. And we saw the direct benefits of that last September when we had the wildland fire up Taylor's Fork. Panel camera saw the smoke column come up, notified us 2 minutes before the 911 call was received in 911 center in Bozeman. So when you look at our ability and looking at ways to improve our technology, that doesn't take people to do it. We're looking to put a second camera up on Eagle Head or Cinnamon Ridge in a partnership with the Forest Service to do that. There's some challenges to do that. But you look at that technology, and the key for us is that the sooner we know about it, the sooner we can respond and start mitigating that process. Also a partnership with Gallatin County Sheriff's Office, emergency management for both Madison and Gallatin County. I'll let them speak to actual evacuation when it comes to roads. Big Sky Fire obviously would be engaged in the fire suppression part of that. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but just give you some highlights of what we've been doing this winter. Even knowing it was snow on the ground. Big Sky Fire Department staff, Sergeant Hayden with Gallatin County Sheriff's Office, all attended a 3-part evacuation best practice workshop hosted by the Fire Adaptive National Network. Here's a big one: is viewed our first evacuation modeling and planning software demo for a contractor to come in and model the area and assist with planning efforts. These are experts that would come in, model the area, determine zones of where they're at. Another piece that we're looking to do is working with CPAW and Big Sky Chamber to identify messaging and engagement techniques to better notify tourists or even seasonal residents in the area as a component of the CPAR grant. We're also working on advertising campaign to get more people enrolled in the Gallatin County's emergency notification software. It's the Everbridge software. That's essential. If you're not signed up for that, please do so. When there is an event, we can push out the information and everybody can be notified where it is, what's going on, and where to go find the information. And then also, we're working on a standalone wildfire preparedness site that encompasses everything from county evacuation notifications, levels of routes to current fire danger and current fires. And then this also will be a site where all the links and QRs be placed on VRBOs, other establishments will, where to take people. So when you look at the ability, when you look at the number of VRBOs in our community, when people come and visit, they have no idea truly where they're at. So getting those people information of here's where you're at, here's where you need to go, or where you don't need to go, will be critical. It'll be on the back of the door like you see in a hotel room. Here's your room and here's your exits. So just be trying to get that information out to the general public who come and visit in our community. So everything the Big Sky Fire does is about protecting and preserving every person that lives here and every person that visits. When you look at the needs, again, we addressed a lot of our wildland deficiencies last couple of years with a great partnership with Resort Tax. We're going to continue to look at the panel cameras to enhance that capability. And I can't speak for Tom Butler, but I know they're looking to put a camera up in the Yellowstone Club. And the key to the more cameras you have, the better activation and cross triangulate exactly where that fire is. So when we had the fire detection with one camera, we were going up Doe Creek, we were going up every drainage because you couldn't tell exactly where it was at. By having a second or third camera in the community, that'll cross triangulate and that better points us to where we're exactly going to go. So like I said, even though it's a winter season, Big Sky Fire and all the staff and partners have been working hard on addressing all the community's concerns and needs when it comes to wildland fire. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Commissioner Heckler, do you want to talk about the sheriff interlocal?
No, but yes. Part of being the newbie commissioner, I just figured out I have been asked to talk about the sheriff's interlocal agreement. I think everybody up here is wiser than I, because I just figured out I can either upset the Madison County Sheriff or the Gallatin County Sheriff or both. And that could be in a difficult position. This is a good story. This is an up story. The Sheriff's interlocal agreement was first signed in July 1st, 2020. And it is up for renewal on June 30th, 2023. And what it does, if you don't already know, it provides law enforcement services for the Big Sky areas. So you can get complicated in what it does, but that's what it does. Both Madison County and Gallatin County contribute to a rounded or truncated number of $330,000 a year to provide a minimum of 6 deputies to police the area. The word growth has come on a lot of times too today, and there's growth here, and it's reflected in the increase in call volumes that's going up, and we're well aware of that. And we're starting already in developing ideas of planning and funding to actually it has to increase the policing effort up in the Big Sky area in proportion to the growth. Again, it is a positive story that this is already underway in development. And of course, it always gets down to money and funding. And in this next year, we'll be looking at Gallatin County Sheriff's Department takes the lead and handles some administrative costs that the Madison County Sheriff does not at this moment. So in looking at future funding, we need to be, the word fair. I used to have a partner who said, the only thing that's fair is what you take your kids to. But just say equitable is a better word. And this is already underway. And there's transitions in underway also, because we're going to lose Phil. He's not running for sheriff. And so we'll be dealing with the new sheriff out of Madison County. But we can promise you that we will be working with that new sheriff in the transition into continuity of service with policing up here in Big Sky.
Sheriff Springer, did you have anything you might want to add? Good call. Okay, let's talk about the water and sewer plant, Ron Edwards and Mace Mangold.
It's Ron.
2 minutes.
I'm gonna let Danny do the timekeeping on that one.
Minutes is perfect. Thank you, commissioners. I'd like to personally thank Joe Skinner. He's going to be down off the commission in December of this year. He's been on since 2005. Is that right? On the planning board before 1994, I think. So thanks for all your work. Always love to shift the conversation to wastewater. Last time I was in this room talking, we were talking about this project we were working toward, building a new treatment plant. A few things have gone on in the world since 2019. This time I'm happy to report that we're building the same project we talked about a couple of years ago. Always throw maps up. This is our county water and sewer district boundary. It includes the mountain village of Big Sky, basically up to the gate for Moonlight Basin. Purple areas, Lone Moose Meadows, Spanish Peaks down below, Aspen Groves. I don't know if I've got a laser. Aspen Groves. And then the Meadow Village and our boundary ends below the hardware store where the workforce housing is going in on the east end of our district. We're also town center, West Fork Meadows. Our neighbors, Moonlight Basin, Yellowstone Club, they have their own water systems and wastewater systems. The club, Yellowstone Club, working on a new wastewater treatment plant. Moonlight built an advanced treatment plant, put it online a couple of years ago. An MBR plant similar to what we're building, just much smaller in size. This is an aerial view of our current facility. This is what we call an SBR, sequential batch reactor plant. It was built in 2002, put online in 2004, $11.5 million. This is an overview of the new plant. So we're in construction. We worked out an arrangement with the park to expand our boundary to the west. And without that, it would make this project impossible to build. So we're building a new, what's called an MBR, membrane bioreactor facility on this site. The beauty of this is it allows us to keep our current plant online. And if you've got to build a plant, expand it, take your plant offline, to do that, it becomes very, very difficult. And so we're able to keep our current facility fully running as we build the new plant. This is a rendering of what the finished look of this MBR treatment plant. I dare say it might be one of the best looking wastewater plants in Montana once we get it built. You just don't get to throw up square box pole barns in Montana, Big Sky especially. So that's the goal. That's an overlay of the actual design. It's got a very large footprint, requires a lot of concrete. This is our bid tab, and these prices are stunning what it's costing to build a wastewater plant now. Our base bid, low bidder, was $41.3 million. That's company in Boise, Idaho, RCI. They were awarded the contract. We added this alternate into it. We just approved a change order to add more tankage, more concrete. We're down at $48 million. Did a
Bid award, April 28th of 2021, notice to proceed. Started construction in June of last year. We'll be working on liquids in the plant in spring of 2023, final completion 2 years from now, March of 2024. So it's going to take 2.5 years to build it. How we're paying for all this, we've got a deal, a contractual arrangement with the resort tax. Your 1% resort tax vote is going to fund $27 million towards this project. And then it'll be funded by rates from our ratepayers. And then we're also retiring some other general obligation bond tax debt while the new debt's coming in. A few aerial pictures. Gallatin County allowed us to put this concrete batch plant in, which has been a fantastic win for this project. When you look at the yardage, 9,000 yards of concrete, that's about 1,100 concrete trucks that are not driving the canyon to us. So thank you for that. This tent structure was put up for the winter build, and we turned out we had a mild winter. Had they not done this, it would be 6 feet of snow down there. So I think it would. That will come down in May, and it'll be gone the rest of the project. So you can see our current SBRs online here as they're building on the new plant looking to the west. This was taken yesterday inside. You can see a lot of rebar, concrete going in. They got another pour scheduled today. Every time I go down there, I feel guilty. The hardest thing I do is walk up the steps to my office. Watching these guys, it's pretty impressive. That is not me. One other project very quickly, we drilled 9 wells on the mountain looking for new water sources on the mountain. We've got 2 wells right there that look like they're potential producers, maybe 70, 80 gallons a minute. They're located close to existing piping, which is a good thing. We're working with Big Sky on easements for those. So those do look promising. This is a picture of our test well we did on one of the wells. To Kristen's point earlier, we are working on a water source water protection plan and source supply. We'll have a draft report from our consultant at our next meeting. The report will look at how much water we've got, kind of project that out based on existing growth and development and needs of the community. So there'll be more to come on that. That's me. If anybody has questions, call me or email, preferably call. I get lots of email. So I'm going to hand off to Mace Mango. Mace works with WGM Group. They're working with the new Canyon District.
There's a lot of slides again. Fonts just keep bringing to yours.
I can only guess what he's gonna say.
I always have one.
There you go.
Okay, so Ron's new plant definitely plays in a canyon. Into the canyon picture. I'll get into that a little bit. First, want to acknowledge I'm up here on behalf of the Canyon District, yes, WGM Group, but we've been involved essentially from 2019 feasibility study to Canyon District formation to PER to securing funding. This all has been about a 4-year process. I put Canyon District at the top because that's who I'm presenting on behalf. In reality, this should all flip. Gallatin River Task Force was essentially the engine that put this into motion back in 2018, 2019, recognizing the impact of septic systems on the Gallatin River. They requested funding for the Big Sky Resort Tax. Big Sky Resort Tax funded the feasibility study. Big Sky County Water and Sewer District in the interim period of the Canyon District forming, helped fund the PER that kept things in motion and put us in the running for a fair amount of funds. And then finally, over the last year, the Gallatin Canyon District went from basically zero to full steam ahead. So lots of players in this 4-year endeavor. We do have the website up to go. I'm going to cover this at a high level. If you want to go to the website, there's 400 pages of documents you can read front to back and enjoy. Mission statement, it's basically clean water in the river, safe water to drink. The canyon is all private or mostly private wells, some larger public wells, but everybody's getting their drinking water from that same aquifer those septic systems are. And then also recognizing central sewer is somewhat of a game changer in terms of accommodating workforce housing and just reducing sprawl. And that helps solve a number of other problems you've heard today. So we have about 3 or 4 slides. Again, project timeline, funding received in 2019, feasibility study conducted from that June date to May 2020. We held a rollout of what those feasibility study findings were, roughly two outreach meetings in the canyon over that period. Those meetings are available online. The district formed 6 months later. The pace at which this community can move is impressive. This type of effort would be 10 years for any other community, and to see that district form within 6 months of rolling out that feasibility study is kudos to the community. And then the last 1 year of PER submittal, ARPA funding, securing $2 million from the state ARPA grant and $750,000 from the local county ARPA fund. So that brings us to October 2021. The last year has been fast and furious, securing substantial funds. In addition to that 2.75 million is roughly 12 million through Big Sky Resort Tax to support some of the infrastructure I'll communicate in a second. So we're up to nearly $15 million in funds, and the 2022 to 2026 effort is really outreach to the Canyon corridor, recognizing that this is in motion, who's interested in being part of it, and basically advancing the plan through that effort. Project deed, we always hear about nutrient impacts on the Gallatin River. I want to actually focus on human health protection. As I mentioned, there's 50 to 100 drinking wells in the canyon aquifer. We've started to try to quantify health risk. Health risk is a very difficult item to put a number on. It's all percentages, best guess. But in general, septic systems are very poor water quality, and they have pathogens, bacteria, and our preliminary stab at quantifying this. This is the canyon corridor. Our study goes beyond that all the way down to high school. I just kind of zoomed in roughly from Ramshorn to the stoplight, Gallatin River, right here down the middle. And these represent preliminary estimates of travel time to either down gradient wells or the river. 200 days is about that margin of where risk is notably reduced. Inside of 200 days, there's a fair amount of risk. And what's going on is the groundwater gradient runs south to north, and the west side of the canyon generally works towards the Gallatin River. And then there's this general corridor that the cumulative effects pose substantial risks anywhere in the yellow, definitely in the red, and it gets even worse as those cumulative effects go up through the valley. And through this whole corridor is, again, at least 50 wells in the north, and as you look at the broader region, numerous others. So that's the drinking water source protection. We're just starting to try to quantify that human health risk a little better. So that's our first exhibit. This is an exhibit back from the feasibility study, looking at all the existing systems in the canyon, running kind of nitrogen loading to the river. Basically, yellow is medium-ish quality. It's still probably 5 times worse quality than what's coming out of Ron's plant or new plant. In general, septic systems spit out anywhere from 40 to 50 milligrams per liter nitrogen. Ron's plant will be sub 5, probably average closer to 4. So the new plant, 10x better water quality. And we have this next figure that shows without central collection, that valley is going to continue to grow. The loading to existing systems is going to increase. The performance of those systems will decrease, and there will be new systems throughout the valley. So you can start to see without central sewer, our impact to the river increases, our human health risk is going to correspondingly increase. Thus the importance of the project. So overview of infrastructure, I want to acknowledge kind of partnership really going forward. There's numerous river interest groups that are always chiming in. Housing interest groups, central sewer brings more solutions into play for workforce housing and community interests in general, reducing traffic on the corridor up to Big Sky. Generally, I guess at a high level, the Big Sky Water Sewer District plant up here, the new upgrade, it's basically gravity collection to a lift station up Lone Mount Trail to the new plant and send treated effluent back down for either irrigation reuse or groundwater discharge. The discharge effort is in motion, building off the MBMG study that the Gallatin River Task Force mentioned about an hour ago in their presentation. So we look to build off of those findings, use that information to identify suitable groundwater discharge areas. But generally, it's a gravity collection and a gravity pressure main for disposal down to the canyon. One benefit of this is preserving the water coming out of the plant rather than land applying, and that becomes 100% consumptive use. We're actually serving it to recharge the aquifer and let the aquifer still serve the benefit of denitrification, phosphorus uptake, and basically polish that high quality effluent even more. So all in all, great solution. Again, outreach effort to the entire canyon corridor is ramping up essentially today, and starting to reach out to the community. Website's up and running if you want to learn more. That's all I got.
Hey, Al Malinowski, I'm really interested to find out what's going on with both up.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Al Malinowski. I'm going to give you a little bit of history as to what we've been working on. I know commissioners, some of you have heard this story before, but since we have so much of our community here, it seems like a good time to share some of that information. Many people know from past conversations like this that we have a contract station in Big Sky, a contract post office, which we've run for the last 20 years. When we started this process, I didn't think I'd be standing here 20 years later saying we still had a contract post office. And that's one of the things we're trying to correct. But we have had some successes, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what's been done over the last 6 months, what's happened more recently, and then hopefully where we're going. I think in the last 6 months, I know we've had several of the commissioners walk through the facility on tours. I know our state congressperson Gillette, we've had Congressman Flowers tour the facility, and we've had representatives from Senator Daines' office, Senator Tester's office, and Representative Rosendale's office tour the facility. And I think it really gave them an opportunity to see the behind the scenes. I know many of you in this room probably haven't had that opportunity to see what goes on behind those walls. There's not a lot of space back there, as you know, and that's one of the things that we're working on and that we want to try to solve. One of the things that our tours have helped us do is allow those local, state, and federal leaders to reach out to relationships they have within the United States Postal Service and share not only what they saw, but what they know about what's happening in Big Sky and happening in Montana. And that's, I think, a difficult thing for someone in an office elsewhere to understand when they have Al Malinowski sending him a letter saying we need more space and our place is growing in an explosive way. So we've made some steps in getting some understanding. I think the first acknowledgement of that understanding came just last month. We regularly go to the United States Postal Service asking for rate increases. We're contract stations, so we're paid a flat amount to run the post office. Since 2004, our rate increases haven't been enough to cover the cost of operating the facility. And we've had to rely on the Big Sky Resort Area District to fund that deficit. Over the last 5 to 7 years, that deficit has grown substantially to the tune of, I think last year's request was for $131,000. That was the gap between what it costs to run the facility and what we were being paid by the United States Postal Service. I mentioned at the last resort tax meeting, and I'm happy to report today that our most recent rate increase request was fully approved, which means for the first time in about 17, 18 years, the Big Sky Post Office will not need to rely on resort tax for funding in this next year. I was hoping that's how you'd react. Obviously, that money now can be used for other needs in our community, which you've already heard about many of them today. So that was step one. But we don't want to stop there, because all that does is give us enough funding to operate the facility in the current space. And we all know from our tours, and even without a tour, it's pretty obvious that we need more space. We don't have enough boxes for our community, PO boxes. We don't have enough room. Over the years, our storage space behind those walls has shrunk, and we've added more and more and more places to store boxes. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, Kevin, when we went, the pandemic, if anything, magnified the deficiencies that we have in the post office right now. So we don't want to let that go. While we're having those conversations about needing more space, it also seems logical to discuss whether we've reached the point of needing a federally operated post office as opposed to a contract station. There are many limitations that we have because we're a contract station. Just one example would be passport services. I had to go renew a passport and had to drive down to West Yellowstone a couple of weeks ago to do that there. Because we're a contract station, we currently can't provide that service. And it seems like that would be one example of something our community would welcome having available to them right in our community. We also don't have the ability to integrate our point of sale system. So a lot of things you see our team doing where you say, geez, that doesn't seem like it makes sense in 2022. We agree with you, but we don't have that ability yet to integrate into those systems. And maybe that has the ability to change sometime without going to a federally operated post office, but that is one way we can do it. And it seems like, at least if we're talking about a transition to a new space or a transition on how we're providing service, that should be something that's considered in the mix as well. So those are the type of things that we think we can discuss if we're able to get a representative from the United States Postal Service. We take a step back, not just a representative from the United States Postal Service, but from the right department out, who can make decisions and can evaluate our current space and the growth in our community and start to identify what the best potential solutions are. And we have a great option that's going up right next door. Many people in this room probably are under the assumption that that already is going to be the new post office. I know I'm told that all the time. And yet, unfortunately, at this time, it's a great opportunity, but it's not the current solution because we need to get the involvement of decision makers within the United States Postal Service to look at our community and evaluate that. So one of the things I'm asking today, you notice is action next to our name on the agenda item. We've prepared a letter. Danny and I have worked pretty hard over the last few months assembling the information, and now we've put together a letter that we hope fits within the collaborative nature of our discussions today. We're asking all of the folks that at our local level, so the commissioners, at our state level, our representatives and senators, and at our federal level, our representatives and senators, to sign this letter requesting that the United States Postal Service takes that next step. You used a great example earlier about the think, plan. We're stuck in the think stage right now, and we want to transition into the plan stage. We can't do that. We can't have a long-term plan without the direct involvement of decision makers within the United States Postal Service. And since we've gotten some momentum with the rate increase request, we don't want to rest on that. We want to continue to move forward. So I believe you guys have all seen the letter. It's been circulated multiple times. I know we have some of our state senator and representatives in the room. Your names are on this as well. As you know, I'd love to take this opportunity to ask all of you to sign this letter to kick this off, and we can get the remaining signatures from the folks that aren't here, send it off to the representative at the United States Postal Service, and hopefully take that next step into the plan stage of how we resolve our post office challenges long term. So I don't know if this, Commissioner Skinner, I don't know if this is going to require a motion or if you guys can just sign this. I'll kind of leave that to you. Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm going to hand this over. While you're kind of considering that for a second, I also wanted to mention, because now that we're getting your help with this, often the question comes up, what can we do as a community to help? And we're trying to devise that next step of help as we speak. We're putting together within the Big Sky Post Office, I don't know what app we're using, but essentially it's going to be a survey where we can start to accumulate information on folks who have a PO box and what their experience was to get there. And just as importantly, try to ascertain how many people in our community are either pursuing, waiting, need a PO box. And while it seems like that should be something we just know, it isn't, because we're a creative community, and what we generally do is we try to solve our own problems, and we have for years, right? I mean, there are numerous stories. Taylor, I see you back there. How many people get their mail through PO Box 160001? I know we went through a process a while back where we found out there are people that hadn't worked for you for years that were still getting their mail through the Box 1 PO Box, because that was a way to solve the problem, right? People do other options. People team up with someone to get a box. They use a management company to get a box. Ton of them end up in general delivery, and I won't bore you with that lengthy discussion. You guys saw what general delivery looks like when you went through our tour. So we were creative with that. In fact, I was giving a tour a few weeks ago to somebody, and they mentioned, even though that they're an adult now working in our community, that they still get their mail through their parents' PO box because they haven't been able to get one themselves. We want to try to capture that kind of information, so when this visit happens, we can show the United States Postal Service that we've done some homework, and this is how many people are waiting. This is how long some of them have been waiting. And so we kind of put some names to the challenge that we've been experiencing. So be aware that's coming. That's something that we'll get the word out. I think Explore Big Sky will help us, I hope. We'll have information out there where you can figure out how to add to that information, and hopefully in our own way, speed up the process. So when the United States Postal Service does come out to visit, we have some real data to show them of what our deficiency looks like. I don't think there's anyone that doubts we have a deficiency, but what does that look like in numbers? I think that's a great idea. I think you just did. You guys.
Representative Gillette, Representative Walsh, Senator Flowers, would you guys mind coming up and signing the letter? No pressure. No pressure. But it would be noticed if you didn't come.
The letter's right over here. Thank you.
Well, since they came up, I'm anticipating it happening. So I just, again, want to say thank you to all of you for taking the time to recognize the problem, to learn about the problem, and to take this step forward. I think this will be a great showing of the collaboration that Kevin referenced earlier, on recognizing that there's a challenge and helping through the right channels get that communication to people in the United States Postal Service so we can move into the plan stage.
Now, I think we thank you. I had no clue before I took that tour what was going on here.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. If there are any questions, you can look me up.
Well, I guess Kevin Germain is our expert on the recreational marijuana here. Commissioner Skinner. It is interesting seeing my name next to this line item. We have this on here as a discussion, and I really don't anticipate any discussion. This is more of an information sharing. And this is for both our community members as well as information sharing I'd like to do with our partners in Gallatin and Madison County. For those of you that read the Bozeman Chronicle, you will know that Gallatin County is putting on a ballot this spring a 3% sales tax on recreational marijuana. As per state statute, I believe 45% of that goes to towns and cities, 55% to the county. Did I flip those? Is it 55, 45, and 5? Okay, thank you. 50, 45, 50, 45, and 5. As we all know in this room, we are not incorporated. And so the 40% we don't qualify for. And so one of the things we are raising this issue now before Madison County goes to a vote is I don't know if there's any way to get some sort of remittance from that 3% that's collected from dispensaries here in Big Sky. The second thing I would note is the resort tax already assesses 4% on the existing dispensaries here in Big Sky. So they'll be at 7%. And so letting the community know this vote is coming in Gallatin County, I'd be really surprised if Madison County doesn't pursue the same tax. And then also informing the counties about our existing 4% tax. And we're hoping that we don't force dispensaries just outside of our district boundaries to avoid paying resort tax. So it's an information sharing, and I believe we'll have discussions at our subcommittee meetings on this.
Good, thank you. And Gallatin County Commission has pledged, at least this commission, if this passes, we're going to commit that money to mental health services, which is very needed in this community, and we're working to provide better mental health services, and we think this is a really good way to fund that. So that's what we've committed to do with the money if the tax passes. And it's also a vote to tax medical marijuana at the same rate. So do you want to add anything?
So yeah, just to clarify, there will be 2 ballot questions on the Gallatin County voters ballot. One 3% tax question for recreational marijuana and one 3% tax question for medical marijuana. So someone can vote against both of those, for both of those, or for one and against the other. And I think it's worth stating that there is no specific remittance mechanism that singles out individual dispensaries and collects revenue to support the community in which that dispensary operates. Ultimately, the tax will be collected by Department of Revenue and then redistributed to the county and the municipalities. I guess I would posit that our crisis services that Gallatin County currently helps to subsidize and will continue to help subsidize benefit taxpayers across county lines or across the county. And so that's really our intention is to use those resources to support our mental health crisis services, which are in a state of crisis. And we're rebuilding those services in many respects as we speak. So that's all I had to add in response to your prompt. Thank you.
I would also, at Big Sky, in our resort area district, we only charge the tax, or we only have the tax on recreational. We do not have a tax on medical. So if you read the ordinance and you look through our ordinance and went to any of our meetings, we did discuss it is simply for recreation for the resort area district.
All right, thank you. And I'm not sure what this next agenda item is, but Ruth Solari and Jenny Muscat.
We're gonna swap that. I'm Danny Pierschwald. Jenny is actually administering our meeting here for Zoom. So thank you, Jenny. I'm here to provide an update on the community vision strategy. And pass around handouts, which also on the back end include the materials for select this presentation next. As many of you know, and has mentioned today, our Big Sky plan, which dropped in the lapse of the resort area district back in 2019, pre-pandemic, really has been focused on pivoting for the last few years on the Big Sky relief efforts and our COVID impacts that we had within our community. And now that we begin to pull away from what have been more micro impacts on the community related to COVID, we're focused on actually implementing our Big Sky plan. A talented group of individuals who I am here to present these efforts on behalf of are implementing this plan. They're the coordinating council. And as many of you remember, the plan itself had in place multiple strategies which were outlined to move forward the community needs of Big Sky. The coordinating council is a volunteer group of individuals that are really working towards moving forward the strategies. So what we have here, and there are copies in the back for those of you who do not have access, you can go grab them, but fairly short update with some substantive movement and direction for the future of our community. Our Big Sky plan outlined a framework which included strategies, initiatives, and projects. We're all very familiar with the boots on the ground projects that have been happening. Many of us actually received funding requests for those projects. The strategies that were outlined in our Big Sky plan missed some meat on the bones and substance that we're going to be able to move forward in tying those projects together with actual substance and measurable activity, actionable activity that would take place here in the community by the doers and the boots on the ground that are making this plan happen. Basic framework is focused around outcomes, key results, and goals. So the plan needs to be very measurable, it needs to be reportable, and it needs to be actionable in a specific way that we can report back to you, the community, the work that is being done by the boots on the ground. What you're going to begin seeing here, and this is the implementation framework, which is on page 4 of the 2022 update. Essentially, there are 3 core areas. Strategy at its highest level have results that are being done through the outcomes of the efforts that fall underneath it. So it's a tiered approach in which the strategies might have a visionary type of an ambition. So if you look at some of the strategies that are outlined here, by the way, the contact information for each coordinator is also listed here. So let's pick on Brad Niva, who is out today, so we can pick on him. But the positive climate where businesses can prosper. This is an area that Brad is working towards defining what is going to actually be happening underneath the strategy. Our Big Sky plan did a really good job of outlaying the framework. Now we need to begin to take action. And so Brad, through this particular initiative, Positive Business Climate where businesses can prosper. Not unlike other mountain towns, Big Sky is challenged with recruiting and retaining a viable workforce. Lack of benefits, limited housing, and the cost of living contribute to the shortage of available workers in Big Sky. So what Brad has done in working with community partners is defined kind of the 3 core initiatives, which are outlined here in the 2022 update. And each of these strategies has initiatives that are attached to them. Those initiatives include key results, which will begin to tier down into projects that are being presented within the community. Some of those projects are funded through our commissions. Some of them are jointly funded through our interlocal agreements that we have together, like the sheriffs, for example, and Greg Negard, one of the coordinators on the coordinating council who's focused on public safety, is kind of tying that loop together. But what you begin to see are strategies leading to ultimate cumulative outcomes and results, initiatives underneath those strategies, and using the one that Brad had, creating educational opportunities for businesses, providing tools for recruitment and retention, and advocating for business and nonprofits to partner and collaborate. What you'll begin to see are projects that are falling directly underneath those, and the projects have goals. You can look at this as 100,000 foot level is the strategy, 50,000 foot level is the initiative, and the ground level, ground zero, are these projects that are happening.
With that, I just want to thank both Jenny and Ruthie, who have helped support this group of volunteers as they move forward. The group of volunteers and the coordinating council have done an amazing job of pulling together the next kind of like substantive update on what's going to be happening with Our Big Sky plan. And you'll begin to see updates and moving forward, really kind of a progress report on the measurable results. That's the next level that we're going to begin to tie into. Some of these areas are much easier to identify, using the housing initiative as an example. Very easy to begin to accumulate, okay, how many units do we need? What is the number of beds that we would need? You can really attach some solid metrics to that. The rest of these are all being defined, and we're really proud of the work that this group has done. And if you want to learn more, you can find the report online on the Resort Area District website, resorttax.org. We hope you will all share it, and we hope you will begin to engage with all these coordinators throughout the community. If you have a question related to public safety, Chief Nygaard's contact information is listed right here within the Our Big Sky plan, and he can help to pull together the initiatives within that area. So thank you for the time, and look forward to continuing to update you as we begin to take action on this plan.
Hey, Sarah, would you like to overview the resort district request?
Absolutely. So I love the fact that we're able to all get here together and collaborate. I think it makes such a difference to our community. Having been here for over 30 years, it's just wild to see how much it has changed. And it's great to see how much many things have changed. It's exciting. So I wanted to give everybody a brief update on our resort tax requests and how our budget is shaping up. If you have a look on the screen, or commissioners, you all have it in front of you as part of Our Big Sky packet in the back. You can see kind of where we're at. Our total request is over 8 million, 8.7 million. It was originally projected last year from our applicants to be about 7.3 million. So you can see there's a pretty substantial increase of what we've actually been requested as to what we were told we would be requested. We do have about $5.1 million in interlocal commitments. You can see some great ways that we impact our community. There's health and safety, public works, recreation, economic development, arts and education, as well as housing. One of the things we have really started focusing on is objectivity in our decision-making. To increase the objectivity and transparency, we have created a scoring system that is in your packet as well. We've really focused on core criteria of collaboration, efficiency, and planning. This evaluates our sponsoring organizations and lets us see as a board how the organization is doing as a whole, and then the projects being proposed. This year, we've had 66 projects requested from 21 sponsor organizations for that total. This does not include, that $8 million does not include the interlocal commitments, that is separate. So I don't do math in public, but 8.7 million plus 5.1 million. We're working towards increasing the overall level of support for long-lasting capital and infrastructure projects, really trying to transition away from significant funding of administrative costs. Really focused on that, and we've been talking about it at a lot of our meetings, really with the understanding that we want to make sure every organization is healthy and sustainable. And if we are funding consistently all of the operation or a very large portion of the operation, that's not healthy for the organization. This year, we asked applicants what their requests would be to each county, along with their other local foundations. Commissioners, you have that in front of you. I don't know if we have that on the screen, but it appears that you'll have potentially 4 requests from Gallatin County, 2 from Madison County. The Spanish Peaks, Moonlight, and Spanish Peaks and Moonlight Community Foundations both have 13, and the Yellowstone Club Community Foundation will have 4. We do also show in our piece here the interlocal agreements we have, which are with Big Sky Water Sewer, Big Sky Fire Department, Big Sky Transportation District, the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Canyon Water and Sewer. BISRA does have interlocal agreements with all 4 of those, and we do cooperate with our 2 counties on the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office. So some interesting stats. We're excited to look at the projects coming up. I believe our project applications come through at our next meeting on the 20th. Right now, we've really been focused on sponsors and making sure that every organization is as healthy as it can be. So if you have any questions, I know my contact info is somewhere, and I prefer text and email over phone calls, unlike some other people here.
All right, well, I want to thank all the presenters. I'm going to open it up for public comment. I'm going to limit public comment to 5 minutes. I really don't want to get into a back and forth, so if you want to ask a question, we may answer it at the end, but we're not going to get back and forth. We'll just take comments. All the presenters' contacts are readily available, so if you have specific questions for them, you can contact them with questions. So I'll take public comment in the room first. If there's anyone that wants to give public comment. I have just two.
And I'll just hold this to take it around the room. Just wanted to thank Senator Dane's office, Senator Tester's office, and Representative Rosendale's office with the post office initiatives. They've been tremendously helpful on that front. Representative Gillette was unable to stick around for public comment. She just wanted to note that a drop-off location for ballots in on the Madison County side is something that some support is needed on. So that's for Representative Gillette.
Any public comment? Any other?
David Kack with the Big Sky Transportation District and Western Transportation Institute. I was remiss earlier to also thank the counties for their partnership in funding the Skyline Transportation District. Really appreciate the support of all the partners sitting up at the table up front. And there has been some discussion of maybe more formalizing those partnerships through an interlocal agreement similar to what we're doing with law enforcement, and appreciate Danny and Resort Tax and talking about that to look at the potential for 3-year agreements at a time. So there, the district has a little better sense of funding for the upcoming years. And so looking forward to those discussions. And as mentioned, though I'm leaving the state of Montana in August, I still will be working for the Western Transportation Institute, MSU. Most of you know how to get a hold of me, and still be looking forward to supporting the transportation district in Big Sky. So thanks.
Anyone else like to comment?
Jenny, anything online?
Mark, if you wouldn't mind saying Mark is allowed to speak to the mic.
Mark, go for it.
Hello. Yes, thank you. My name is Mark Stannard. A tremendous meeting. Great work, great presentations. Thank you. My comment is twofold. First, we have all of this work that has been presented today is not completed work. Very important work. And my request of the commission is that we take these open-ended issues that we need to understand before further growth of Big Sky happens and create a checklist against which decisions that would approve requests for new development would be documented against these open issues, and we would have a basis of recording the basis of decision-making to approve or unapprove or delay approval of a project. Second comment has to do with the evacuation plans, obviously critical. I was hoping to see if there was, people are looking at how do you get first responders to incidents when everybody is evacuating these very single path roads, whether it be Jack Creek or the main road. You're going to be 100% dependent on air evacuations or mitigation of events that happen during evacuations. And I was hoping to hear more about that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else on Zoom?
Deborah, go ahead. Deborah, you can speak for
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, great. I'm here with Mark, my husband, and we got 3 different devices going. So we were muted and we were getting reverb and all this stuff. So thanks. I'm speaking from his computer. My comment, it's funny. We have attended a lot of meetings starting last summer, and I absolutely appreciate, someone said earlier, the vigor and vim that the Big Sky community has pulled together on these so important issues. Similarly, as Mark said, it's funny, we independently wrote our comments, but I request as well that the trajectory of these initiatives be kind of forecasted in a public or let's say a dashboard kind of fashion, where the decision makers and approvers have visibility to, we're going to have a water supply report I'll use wastewater. We're going to have a wastewater treatment plant in 2024 and 2026. Well, how many connections are we looking to have before that is completed and ready? On paper, of course, these things are always evolving, versus how many do we actually have current day to really help kind of precede critical decisions, just so we don't get into trouble with fixing a huge, environmental or tragic accident issue down the road. So turns out that he and I guess, when you're with somebody all these years, as we all know, we think sort of alike, that just provide some visibility is my comment, so that decision makers have a high level strategic, understanding of all the good work that is being attempted. What are the results of that work? And, if the results are not available, the decision cannot be taken. It can't be approved. So hopefully that is helpful, and appreciate the time.
Thank you. No one else on Zoom? I'll ask for one more in the room.
Okay, this isn't really a public comment necessarily, but my name is Whitney Burmis. I'm the communications coordinator for Gallatin County. And Kevin mentioned something when he was talking about the marijuana ballot questions about reading in the Chronicle information. But I just wanted you guys to know that we are, as a county, putting out a lot of information every single day about projects that we are out doing. We have a FAQ about that particular item on our website, so as well as a ton of other projects. So I just encourage you all to check our website. We're constantly updating that. Our website is gallatin.mt.gov, and then we are also all over every social media platform. Our commissioners have started doing weekly video updates, so you don't have to wait till this meeting comes up every few months to hear what Gallatin County is up to. We're working really hard to educate our citizens about what we're doing and make sure that they know how that they can get engaged. So again, our website is gallatin.mt.gov, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Nextdoor, everything. So thank you.
It struck me earlier about some people that have really helped our community, that this may be their last joint meeting. So I really want to call out Mr. Cack. You leave quite a legacy in this community, and what you've created, I hope we can build upon. So David, thank you very much for all you've done for our community. And last, but certainly not least, being an elected official is very much a thankless job. And I really want to thank Commissioner Skinner for being a true partner to the Big Sky community. And you have been wonderful to work with. We have not always agreed, but you have always been a supporter of Big Sky. And so very much appreciate your service to Gallatin County and the community of Big Sky, Joe. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for coming. These are always interesting and really quite fun for me to see all the community interest here, and just to see the updates on things are really getting done and planned, and that's encouraging. So thank you all. Oh, yeah, I'm going to close the public meeting. adjourn it. But I would like to give any candidates that filed for public office, elected office, a chance to come up and introduce themselves and talk for 2 minutes or so. So anyone that's running for public office, please come and introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name's Joe Flynn, and I'm actually running for Mr. Skinner's job here. And happy retirement. My wife and I live in the community off of Spring Hill Road down in Belgrade, outside of Bozeman there. We've got both of our kids are here with their families. We have 3 grandsons, 7, 8, and 9 in the community. And one of the reasons I'm running is because we love this place. And without the good work, and a lot of good work I heard here today for planning for the future. I think we all know water's important. We got that today. And the decisions we make today with the kind of growth that's coming into this community is going to be what the tomorrow is going to be for, my grandchildren, your children, and grandchildren. So it's great to be running. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ken Walsh. If you haven't met me yet, I live over in Twin Bridges, running for re-election for House District 71, which is all of Madison County. So the mountain area of Big Sky here. Worked with Kevin and several other groups over here in the past year, getting a better understanding of the issues that go on here. I'm unopposed, and so the sheriff back there was talking that you didn't have to say much, but I still would like to visit with anybody that has any issues that we can help with and help in southwestern Montana. We all know there's lots of issues because of lots of growth, and so we'll all work together to find solutions. Thank you very much.
I guess I'll be more formal at the podium here. My name is Pat Flowers, and I'm running for re-election for Senate District 32. Senate District 32 is a kind of a convoluted geographic amoeba that runs from campus in Bozeman to Four Corners, a little north to Belgrade, and then everything south through West Yellowstone. It is from my perspective, a really interesting and challenging district because I probably have at least 5 different communities within that district that have pretty distinct needs and pretty distinct politics. And so it's fun to serve all of those. I started down this road 5 years ago as a political newcomer. After a career in natural resources, I spent about half of it working for state forestry, ultimately managing the state's forests, and then moved to Bozeman in '99 and assumed the role of managing the southwestern region for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, which was termed Region 3. Both really interesting jobs, and gave me through that process a great appreciation for public service. And after I retired, realized I had more to give in terms of public service. And the next logical step for me was the legislature. So I've served the last 4 years representing Big Sky, West Yellowstone, and the rest of the district. And particularly appreciate Big Sky. As we heard here today, it's a vibrant community that has a lot of motivated individuals that are working hard to meet the needs of this community. And I've done everything I can over the last 4 years to try and support those efforts. So I hope you'll give me your vote in the next election coming November 8th. And if you have any questions, please call me. I'm always available, my number is 406-580-0035, and I look forward to talking to you. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Christy Wright Ranson. I'm a native Montanan local business leader and mother. I am passionate about serving all of Madison County. The last 3 years, I've served as an Ennis City Commissioner, opened and operated multiple businesses in Madison County, and have lived in multiple locations throughout the Southwest United States. I feel the experience and perception I have gained will help me responsibly carry Madison County into the future. I am prepared and dedicated and in need of a career change, and I am willing to work together with the other commissioners to represent the whole county. Madison County faces many challenges, such as workforce and housing shortages and needs, road conditions and maintenance, responsible growth and new development, as well as existing income inequalities across the county. I believe that a county commissioner is a direct representative of the people we serve, and I am dedicated to work with the partners across local and state government with the residents of the Madison County to make our county better. As a county commissioner, I am a proud Montana native, businesswoman, and mother, which makes me uniquely positioned to preserve the core values of the citizens of Madison County and work as we work forward together for the future. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Bill Topp. I'm running for District 3 County Commissioner. I'd like to thank Kevin for his invitation to speak here today. And I would definitely like to thank my wife for accompanying me today, because I know she took a lot of time out of her busy schedule, and I definitely appreciate it. And as I said, running for commissioner, our roots in the community go back 4 generations, specifically in the Jeffers area. There's not really a lot that we haven't seen as a family. I'm not going to belabor all the issues, because I think we all have good places to go. I'll say that, you know, I'm going to treat this as a full-time job. I have 0 conflicts of interest in this office. And honestly, I look forward to being here for 60 years or more, maybe, God willing. So I'm probably going to be the most accountable person to myself and to the other citizens. And thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Brian Conklin. Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold, so I'm about an octave lower than I normally am. Hopefully they can speed this up on the tape and my voice will be a little bit higher. My name is Brian Conklin. I'm a retired diplomat. I was overseas for about 22 years working with U.S. embassies abroad, but mostly in international development. So I've worked primarily in infrastructure, agricultural development, economic development, developing better banking regulations, tax structures, and public-private sector investment projects. So all these years that I worked overseas, I was always interested in bringing all these skill sets back into my local community. I retired in June. I joined my family here in Madison County. I'm running for, by the way, County Commissioner for District 3 as well, along with Kristen and the other candidate. It's a great opportunity for me to bring back the skill set that I've got in economic development, in planning and strategic plans to create a smart growth structure. But it's also just a chance to continue on in service in my local community. I've got a son who's a cowboy out in the Ruby Valley and a couple of daughters that are in school here in Montana, and just looking forward to the opportunity to serve you in the future. Thank you. I think that
we may have anybody on Zoom. Any candidates on Zoom?
Are there any candidates on Zoom? If so, please raise your hand in the Zoom chat.
With that, thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you again in November with hopefully lots of amazing updates on the good work that everyone in this room is doing. Thanks, everyone.